Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto takes to his training with the guidance of several items that Zabuza left him after the wave mission part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Letting the lukewarm water wash away all of his recently accrued stress and grime, a 15-year-old blonde shinobi couldn't help but sigh as the grimace he wore on his face shifted to a look of determination. Naruto Uzumaki had a mission, and he damned sure wouldn't shy away from the task he had been assigned by the last person one would think possible. Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the hidden mist and notorious S-rank missing nin from Kiri. His first mission as a shinobi outside of the Leaf Village that he called home was a complete fiasco, and the young Uzumaki had learned what being a ninja truly meant during that fateful clash on the bridge that had liberated Wave Country. It was there that he had fought for his life alongside his recently formed team, which consisted of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Kakashi Haddock. As his merciful enemy Haku had explained to him as he cradled Sasuke's needle-ridden body, the way of shinobi meant the possibility of death to not only himself, but the precious few he cared about. For many years during his sabotaged academy training, he had hated the Uchiha prince with a passion that was wholeheartedly reciprocated, but then it had happened. Sasuke had pushed him out of the way of that deadly attack that came from the powerful ice-using ninja that had later been identified as the same person he had befriended in that clearing after a hard day's work and gaining more strength, and despite everything he could possibly conceive, he just couldn't figure out why. Sasuke told him his body had moved all on its own, but that just didn't make any sense at all to the Jinchuriki. All his life he had been either emotionally or physically harmed by the majority of his home village due to the fact that he houses a demon fox within him for the purpose of keeping those very same people safe. He couldn't fully comprehend the notion of someone actually defending his life, but running his hands through his messy mop of hair, the young ninja shrugged off his confusion and decided to focus on the matter at hand. His new mission. The mission that he couldn't and wouldn't fail, even if it costed him his life. Yagura, the fourth Mizukage, and the Jinchuriki of the three-tailed turtle. Naruto couldn't understand how someone so similar to him could do what he was doing to the country he ruled over, but in a way Naruto had more of a grudge against his fellow Jinchuriki than Zabuza ever had. Naruto dreamed of being a Kage himself and protecting his home, despite being ostracized and violated during his difficult life, so why would Yagura, after gaining the most prestigious position in the lands, squander it by killing off people who had suffered such similar hardships? Haku had been a victim of the ongoing bloodline purges that were a curse to those born different in Water Country, and even Zabuza apparently had been, which was the reason he worked for that bastard Gato in the first place. He could still remember the man's dying request to him after Haku sacrificed his life to save his, and Naruto moved his battered body next to the young ninja he had formerly regarded as a tool to be disposed of. After dropping the kunai knife Naruto had tossed into his mouth before Zabuza recklessly tore through Gata's hired thugs and plunged it into the shipping magnate's chest, the demon looked to him with a peculiar expression that Naruto couldn't quite place. Was it hope, recognition, respect? Naruto couldn't tell for sure, but he damn sure remembered what was said and what happened afterwards. How could he not? Brat Naruto, looks like this is the end of the line for me. Take my sword. I can't trust anyone else with it. And cough cough in my hideout. Northeast of here, everything I own. Go there and become stronger than I ever was. The Mizukage Yagura, he's like you. But you're different. You haven't become the demon that he is. He kills for no reason, so many, that's why I tried, but I failed. You have to kill him, Naruto, or I don't know how many more will suffer from his bloodline purge. Promise me. Promise me you'll stop him. Naruto could only look down at Zabuza with wide eyes at the man's fading existence in the realm of the living, not knowing how to respond. Then it clicked. Yagura was like him, but he was the cause of all of this. He was the real reason Haku had suffered and joined Zabuza. He was the real reason Haku was dead. Zabuza was just a man with a mission that many people would consider impossible. He could almost still feel the powerful red chakra flowing through his body, augmenting his pathetic ability enough to overwhelm even a shinobi that Sasuke stood no chance against. A shinobi that had disabled Zabuza in a single blow, with nothing but a senbon needle no less. It was then that he could only dumbly nod at Zabuza, who stared into his eyes with a look of content as his voice trailed off even more. But cough cough. Now take the kunai and finish me. It's my last request. I don't want to die because of a wound one of them gave me. It has to be you. Someone worthy. Cough cough cough. Naruto instantly protested, but the stern look in Zabuza's eyes stopped his panic, and somehow he understood. To Zabuza, who had basically just left him his legacy, dying at his hand was the last small mercy that life would grant him. The blonde hesitantly grabbed the knife after a short while of numb clarity, and he didn't know why the tears started flowing, but they just did. Naruto Uzumaki understood Zabuza Mamachi in that fated moment, and the entire world seemed to shift as his hand plunged into the man's heart, almost seeming to move in slow motion. Zabuza in that moment had become something like a father to Naruto, as crazy as it had seemed. Haku had become like a brother or sister, whatever he was. He wasn't betraying the Ice Shinobi's brave sacrifice in that moment, but instead he was only solidifying it. He was taking the mantle that was Zabuza's purpose in existing, and Zabuza was passing the torch to the only person he could depend on. Him. Blood splattered, soaking Naruto's trembling hand as the kunai dug into Zabuza's chest with little resistance. He couldn't even hear Sakura's cries as she knelt and sobbed over Sasuke's unmoving form, and he didn't even register the fact that Kakashi-sensei had collapsed from chakra exhaustion a minute or so earlier. All he saw was the look of contentment on Zabuza's face as he breathed his final breaths and the nod the man have him as he unconsciously uttered the words that he ultimately lived by. "I'll stop him, Zabuza. I give you my word and I never break my word. That's my ninja way. Believe it." Days and maybe even years seemed to pass as their eyes never faltered, looking directly into each other's souls as flames seemed to fade from Zabuza's eyes and intensify in Naruto's. Then the demon of the mist closed his eyes for the final time, and Naruto didn't think before making a few shadow clones to check on his downed comrades and take Zabuza and Haku to bury them both in the clearing where he first met Haku. After that he didn't even register the roaring celebration as the freed inhabitants of Wave Country converged on the bridge or the fact that said bridge was named after him shortly thereafter. He had a mission. It didn't take long his teammates to wake up at all, and none of them had any idea that he wasn't really there with them. He had left a multitude of shadow clones to watch over them all, and since Sakura was strangely subdued, his doppelganger wasn't dispelled from her violent tendency to lash out in anger at him. The blonde was almost emotionless as he eventually found the hideout, emptying it of all its contents in a robotic sort of way. At that time he didn't even really know what he was grabbing, he just took everything he saw and sealed it into the storage scrolls that played about. He didn't really know anything about sealing, but since he was previously intrigued by the art of Hyuga due to his unique situation with the demon fox, he knew how to at least use a storage scroll. The old man had been kind enough to demonstrate for him once before, while explaining that he wasn't the Kyuubi, and now that demonstration was truly a blessing, considering that the Kubakirabacho's Anbado sword that Zabuza wielded so expertly was larger than he was. It didn't take him longer than half an hour to seal everything away, and after that he just went back to Tazuna the bridge builder's house and slept. He slept like he never had before. Naruto didn't even wash the blood off of his hands until he made it back to Konoha a few days later. Until just now, as he stood for a couple hours in his small shower and let the water wash everything away. Shivering a little as the water began running colder and colder, Naruto gave an appreciative nod thinking of Haku and how his ice techniques were infinitely more worse than the chill he now had. After exiting his bathroom and drying off quickly, the young man decided to make a clone to boil some water for instant ramen while he finally unsealed everything Zabuza had left him. Grabbing the scrolls from his pack and placing them in the middle of his tiny living area, Naruto reverently knelt beside them with a look of determination and began getting down to business. A few minutes later, the boy almost fainted because of what he found within. Everything he would ever need. Recovering from the initial shock, Naruto couldn't help but chuckle as he thumbed through the massive pile of Ryo one of the scrolls had unleashed before him. There were also numerous pieces of reading material, ranging everywhere from outdated and updated bingo books to jutsu scrolls consisting of water nature techniques. There were also many articles of clothing, most likely due to necessity more than a desire to be fashionable. Since Zabuza and Haku were constantly on the run as missing nin, Naruto thought it made a lot of sense to be able to change appearances. There was also a multitude of swords, well 3 to be exact besides Zabuza's Zanbato. One was a basic ninjato, another a katana and the final one a shirasaya. He seemed drawn to the shirasaya and the kubakirabacho, and he also held a great respect for the senbon needles that Haku had all but decimated him with previously. There were also a few unusual kunai present, as instead of the straight kind he was used to using they all had curved blades. After some more rummaging Naruto found that he now had books and scrolls on human anatomy, herbs and poison, psychology, and surprisingly blacksmithing. There was also a cookbook that he had to guess was Haku's, along with a blank black notebook that instantly grabbed his attention for some reason. He didn't even hesitate to open it foregoing the others for some odd reason, but upon finding out what was within he felt his heart hitch because of its content. It was Haku's journal. Opening it to the first page with barely contained excitement, Naruto looked forward to learning more about their journey and began reading at his slow pace. Zabuza-sama and I are going on a mission today, and because of our run-in with the hunter nin during our assassination of that corrupt councilman, I've decided to keep this journal from this point on. I know that as a tool I may need to kill my heart for the sake of my precious person, but I've still been learning everything I can learn about healing techniques. Ever since era has passed I haven't been able to sleep well, and maybe I'm not cut out for this life. I have made a vow however. The next time I will not be helpless as someone dies in front of me, and my conviction of protecting what's important to me will never cease or wane. I've also been developing my snow leopard to jutsu with unwavering commitment, and I am glad to say it's coming along well. I may not be much of an artist, but I have still been drawing the techniques that feel natural to me and the philosophy behind them. I have resolved to make Zabuza proud of my ability, and nothing will stop us from achieving his goals. P.S. The grilled eel and squid we shared was the best I've ever eaten. Naruto hungrily read more and more entries that Haku wrote down, not even noticing the amount of time that seemed to pass. He eventually found something that left him gobsmacked about halfway through the journal, after learning of countless encounters with other ninja and completed missions. It's a beautiful day today, and Zabuza seemed most pleased with my performance during our mission to Kumo. We are now heading toward Whirlpool Country, the ancestral land of the Uzumaki clan, with hopes of finding powerful sealing techniques. The Uzumaki clan were famous for fuinjutsu, kinjutsu, and using chains formed of their chakra that could even suppress tailed beasts. Zabuza-sama has even stated that a certain Uzumaki once sealed off an entire village and he only narrowly escaped, and I thank Kami he managed to. Apparently the village was destroyed, and my clan once were part of the shinobi force before we became refugees when Kumo and Iwa destroyed them in their fear. It is truly a saddening tale for such powerful ninja to have been killed because of their own vast potentials. I can only hope we succeed in finding what he desires, and perhaps I can learn more about my Kekai Genkai if we're fortunate enough. The whirlpools surrounding the country have deterred us so far however, so I am skeptical if we'll even make it ashore, the place where my ancestors once resided. P.S. The tempura we ate together was delicious. Naruto couldn't believe what he had read, and he reread it several times before turning the page and becoming a bit disappointed. Apparently they never made it to Whirlpool, and they almost died, to be honest. There was a creature that kept all vessels back, and even if they could get past there were still the powerful whirlpools to bypass as well. In the end they decided to take more missions and gain anything they could from plotting the corpses of the shinobi they killed off. Naruto had ways wanted to know about his family, and now it seemed he had a lead to go on. The blonde was enthralled and excited about the idea of making chakra chains. He couldn't believe he came from a great clan of ninja when he lived in such poverty his entire life, but somehow it felt right to him. Neji did tell him that his parents had enemies that he couldn't handle at this point, and now Naruto understood why. If anyone ever knew he was an Uzumaki clan member, he could at the very least expect Kumo and Iwa to send assassins to make sure he was deadened. But the visible frown Naruto kept reading, eventually stumbling upon a few interesting entries involving shinobi that Zabuza had history with. One's name was Mei Terumi, a kunoichi that held 2 Kekai Genkai and shared Zabuza's goal of liberating Kiri. The other was with a fellow swordsman of the mist named Kisame, a man that apparently overpowered Haku and Zabuza with ease and caused them to retreat. If such a shinobi could exist, Naruto didn't ever want to fight him. That was for sure. After making a mental note to try and find them in the bingo books that were once Zabuza's, Naruto kept reading until he finally found an entry that he was mentioned in. It was from the day he first met Haku. The day I met an interesting shinobi named Naruto Uzumaki, and despite the fact that I was about to kill him as he slept, I couldn't bring myself to do it for some reason. I can't explain why, but even though I've killed before and he is a hindrance to our mission, it felt wrong. I found out that in many ways he is much like myself, an orphan that grew up despised and unwanted for whatever the reason. He didn't tell me why, but I could clearly see the sadness and loneliness in his eyes when he told me of his situation with his teammates and village. I hope he took my words to heart, as I could see that his reason for growing stronger wasn't enough. He wants acknowledgement and he wants his existence to be appreciated. I can honestly say that I value his existence for some reason I can't explain, and I don't look forward to facing him when Zabuza-sama recovers. He's a cute boy with a good heart and I don't know why, but maybe in another life, we could have been friends. Maybe even more. That is if he didn't think I was a boy. P.S. Naruto has the most beautiful blue eyes and yellow hair I've ever seen. The blonde couldn't help but let a few tears loose as he reread the entry again and the couple afterwards that mentioned him. Haku had apparently been spying on him from afar, admiring the commitment he showed during his self-imposed training to trump Sasuke and master tree walking. The final entry was brief and Naruto felt his heart almost explode from what he read. Today is the day I've been dreading, but to reach Zabuza-sama's goal, I will kill my heart if necessary. But something tells me I won't be able to, and I can only hope that Naruto-kun and Zabuza-sama live on. Tears dropped continuously on the page as Naruto remembered his epic battle with a kunoichi that he thought was the most beautiful person he had ever met. Why couldn't she have lived? Why couldn't Zabuza have lived? Why couldn't he have helped them reach their goals? Why did he have feelings for Haku that he couldn't explain? He was sure of it. If they had met some other way, she would have made a wonderful wife. Someone to spend his life with. Someone who would always hold him as precious and even worth dying for, like she did for Zabuza. And he would have done the same for her. The look of fierce determination was now on his face, the tears whittling away as he reached for a few scrolls with crude illustrations that seemed very familiar. It was Haku's jutsu, picture and notes that made for a very detailed resource, with only the most important points taken note of. Haku would live on through him, and he would become strong enough to free Kiri and protect everyone. It was even more important to him than becoming Hokage, and Naruto would waste no time in achieving their mission. It was time to get serious. As if on cue, the Uzumaki's alarm clock blared, signaling that it was time to head to Training Ground 7, and Naruto didn't even think before creating a single clone to go in his stead. He had research to do and plans to form. 20 minutes later, arriving at Training Ground 7 in record time, Naruto's shadow clone awaited his team, unconcerned by Kakashi-sensei's chronic tardiness, and thought about what the boss would do in order to make it to Whirlpool. Of course, it considered going to the old man Hokage to demand answers about the Uzumaki clan and requesting a trip to his homeland, but somehow he knew the discussion probably wouldn't end well. While Naruto may not have been the sharpest kunai in the holster, he had experienced enough disappointment to know better. The old man would probably ask how he found out about the Uzumaki clan in the first place, and after denying his request, Naruto would probably be put under close scrutiny to make sure he didn't leave the village without permission. It was during this contemplation that a flock of crows decided to fly over his prone form, and one of the mischievous birds decided to let its bowels loose at precisely the right moment, dropping a gooey white bomb of feces directly between his eyes. "Damn it, you bastards, get back here." Forgetting his previous train of thought, Naruto was about to try and tree hop and chase the bastards when an interesting thought popped into his mind. A shit-eating grin instantly plastered itself on his face, most ironically, and wiping his face clean with a sleeve, the blonde did a complete flip and began thanking the birds along with Kami. Haku had mentioned in her journal that Naruto's transformation was something unique that she had never witnessed before, and both her and Zabuza were impressed by his performance when he and Sasuke freed Kakashi when he transformed into a shuriken. If he could turn into a shuriken, why couldn't he turn into a raven? If he could accomplish that, then he could just fly to Whirlpool, and he wouldn't even have to worry about the sea monster or the unforgiving waters that surrounded the deserted country. Just as he was about to test his new idea out, Sasuke appeared with his usual moody look and his hands in his pockets. Turning to the Uchiha that had tried to save his life, Naruto actually smiled for once at the boy he used to hate vehemently. It wasn't returned, however, and Naruto couldn't explain why, but he knew something was off with the boy he now considered something of a friend. "Hey Sasuke, what's up? Naruto, how did you do it?" Although Sasuke asked the question in a soft voice, Naruto could feel the underlying emotion in the query, although he was genuinely confused. "The what? How did you defeat that ninja after I saved your sorry ass?" Naruto now looked a bit affronted by the boy's words, and frowning he replied. "I don't know. I guess I just got lucky." Sasuke seemed to briefly be overcome with rage at his answer for whatever reason, and Naruto honestly didn't know why. Truth be told, Sasuke hadn't said anything to him since their return from Wave earlier that morning, and Naruto had just chalked it up as his usually reclusive disposition. Little did he know that Sasuke had been brooding and wondering about what happened the entire way back, and Kakashi had only temporarily satiated his need to know with an elusive answer that revealed nothing worthwhile. Tensing up and taking a step toward the blonde, Sasuke then declared, "There's no such thing as luck in our world, loser. There's only power. Now that I have these eyes, I'll make you show me your strength, and I'll be one step closer to my ambition." Naruto's eyes went wide upon seeing the red eyes of the Uchiha, and he barely noticed that there were 2 markings in his right eye and 1 in his left before Sasuke charged him. As he leapt to the side, rolled, and righted himself up, it would be difficult to notice the change to the casual observer. While Sasuke clearly was much more skilled in hand-to-hand combat than Naruto ever was, there was a subtle edge about the Uzumaki that only those who have killed moved with. It was as if he had evolved during the crazy mission to Wave Country, with the very first step being his encounter with the Demon Brothers. After that vow he made, clamming up even in the most dire situations was all but non-existent to Naruto. The second step would have been the first encounter with Zabuza, during which his quick thinking had managed to free his sensei from the man's water prison. After that was the dramatic increase in speed after he learned tree walking. But what may have been most effective was what Zabuza made him do. In a way, the two of them had given each other the most precious gift imaginable. Naruto had given him closure before his passing, and Zabuza had given him the steel resolve needed to take a life, something that would change anyone no matter what the circumstances. He had given Naruto his first kill, and it was a first kill that left behind no guilt. While Naruto had been surprised by the initial assault that Sasuke launched, he still managed to avoid the jumping roundhouse that would have knocked a grown man unconscious had it landed. The clone had a strange look of emotionless determination, an unknown switch somewhere in its psyche, having been flipped the moment Sasuke rushed forward. While it wasn't quite as serious as when he fought Mizuki and defended Iruka-sensei, the sharpness of his eyes were quite similar to that occasion. He didn't want to hurt Sasuke strangely enough, but even if he was a clone, he wasn't going to stand around and get hit. Not anymore. It almost was as if Sasuke wasn't even there, but instead the only thing there was his mission. Yagura. He didn't even know it, and he probably never would, but this moment was something that had occurred before. In another time before Naruto was even born, this same type of conflict had happened between multiple individuals just like him and Sasuke. The Uchiha's mindset was extremely similar to Naruto's at this moment, as he berated himself and Naruto because of what he had done on the bridge. Sasuke was an avenger, and he almost died protecting the loser. It was unacceptable, and even though he saw the blonde as a hindrance at first, he knew his feelings about Naruto had changed. Naruto was his friend. His only friend. The two genin were more alike than anyone would ever know, and both of them were linked together by fate itself to be rivals. Both of them one of the last of their respective clans. Both of them knowing the pain of being orphans. Both of them with a mission to kill. And both of their targets being extremely powerful. But there was a difference between them, something that completely differentiated them from one another. Naruto sought companionship, while Sasuke shunned such a thing. Sasuke was hell-bent on revenge, although he had yet to end a single life. Naruto was determined to free Kiri, an act that could only be described as protecting hundreds, or maybe even thousands of people from death. Yet he had killed, albeit not in cold blood. Still, the blonde had changed. This was first realized when he didn't try to stop the skirmish with Sasuke, or even taunt the Uchiha. All he knew was Yagura at that moment, and placing his hands in a ram seal, the boy concentrated already making a plan like he did in Wave. Sasuke had the decency to scoff at the 8th doppelganger that appeared, saying to Naruto with a mocking tone of voice. TCH. 8 times nothing is still nothing. Now come on loser. Team. The blondes yelled as 6 of them converged on Sasuke, as the 2 that remained with Naruto poofed in smoke as he waited. The clones didn't even get close, as the predictive analytical eye that was his Sharingan gave him an edge formerly unseen. Jumping up swiftly, the Uchiha landed 4 swift kicks that used the first clone to jump off of and hit 3 more with quick split-like kicks. The last 2 clones were then dispelled mid-swing, Sasuke throwing a vicious uppercut and then a hook that hit them both where they didn't even see it coming. As the smoke cleared, Naruto had already circled around with a kunai in hand, or at least that's what it would seem to be. The boy let out a loud battle cry, and he managed the first part of his impromptu plan by gaining Sasuke's attention. The Uchiha didn't even see the kunai that Naruto had tossed, while the smoke from his clones concealed his movements from Sasuke, and the Uchiha Avenger seeing that Naruto was attacking for real, ran to meet his rival halfway. Then is when it happened, Naruto in a stroke of pure combat genius, tossed the kunai above him in an arc as he all but flew into a jumping knee, just like the knees he had intercepted Mizuki with before. Sasuke however saw it coming and sidestepped while hucking precisely in Naruto's exposed solar plexus. The Uchiha was finally surprised when instead of hitting flesh he instead only dispelled a shadow clone, once again obscuring his vision. The kunai was coming down nearby the Uchiha air, and in a plume of smoke, Naruto caught him off guard with a double-fisted overhead strike as his legs spread out. Sasuke only narrowly managed to block the attack by raising his arms and crouching slightly, and Naruto pushed off of his arms front flipping over him and turning back around into a sloppy hook punch. Sasuke would have none of it however, and he managed a strong spinning back kick just as he was struck from behind. The kunai that Naruto had positioned earlier had snuck up on the Uchiha while he was in the middle of kicking the other clone out of existence, leaping into a knee strike and Superman-type punch all at once. It certainly wasn't the most graceful, shinobi-like attack he could have used from a blind spot, but that didn't mean that Sasuke didn't feel it. The knee hit his lower back hard on the side as Sasuke turned his head surprised, and the punch smashed right into the side of his head, sending him to the ground. The Uchiha was so shocked that his Sharingan actually evolved from the blow, and he now sported 2 Tomo in each of his red eyes. "Don't underestimate me," Naruto declared with his fists balled. Trembling in anger as he rose, his red eyes were covered by shadows as his head was tilted down, and in a dark tone Sasuke told him. "I see, just don't let it get to your head, Naruto." The blonde was caught off guard by the small bit of respect he had just received, and he didn't even see Sasuke's next movement. It was as if the Uchiha had become 3 times faster, and the kick Naruto received was hard enough to even make his real self flinch back in his apartment. Still skimming through the reading material he now had at his home, Naruto's eyes widened in confusion at the memories from Training Ground 7 until he realized exactly what it all meant. He remembered what happened to his clone, from the crow idea to the kunai clone trick to Sasuke showing him just a hint of acknowledgement before demolishing him with that kick. The Uchiha was certainly more skilled than he was, although he would never say it aloud, but if he had been serious, that blow he landed would have killed the Avenger. His clones seemed to be nearly a perfect jutsu, now that he thought about it, as they could help him learn these books better, be sparring partners, run errands, make trap setting far more deadly, be decoys, and even help him escape if he really needed to. With the transformation jutsu, he could probably be the best spy around, as the crows would let him travel a lot faster and discreetly as well. Hell, he wouldn't even have to deal with the shops overcharging him anymore, which would be invaluable in the long run. Too excited to be put down because of Sasuke's shitty attitude, the blonde could only say one thing. Well, scream one thing. Hell yeah. Banzai. After striking a weird pose as if trying to catch something that fell from the sky while leaning to the side, the blonde was sobered up when another thought crossed his mind. Wait, where am I gonna train? Normally a training ground would be more than suitable for him, but since he wanted to keep his secrets guarded, the Uzumaki was faced with a dilemma. Thankfully though, after a glance at the pile of ryo he now had his answer was found. Channeling a nice amount of chakra, the boy sent the scouts out to find what had come to mind to solve his newfound problem, and also read everything he now had, while he went to training ground 7. A few hours later, happily leaving the training ground after concealing himself for so long to avoid Sasuke while he planned, Naruto could only thank Kami that Kakashi decided to abstain from training for about a week while everyone got a chance to recover. Since Gigi had given them all A rank mission pay because of the danger that involved their first C rank, Kakashi had figured Naruto wouldn't need the money, which is why he didn't even have them do any D ranks. Perfect. His clones had already found what they sought when he created them, a new living area. To be more detailed, he had found 3 houses right next to each other that were all vacant. Normally such a thing would be hard to find, and Naruto only managed it because of where the properties were situated. Just outside the Uchiha compound. The Konoha had long had a rumor that ghosts resided there, and even though Naruto had an irrational fear of ghosts, he swallowed it because of necessity. The property in the middle would be his new domain, and the other 2 were bought to make sure he'd have plenty of privacy and also space. They all had large backyards, a little smaller than football fields, with plenty of tall trees interspersed in different places. It helped that they were all fairly luxurious and well kept, or at the very least they shitted on his small apartment. The price he got them for was also a steal because of the lowering property value, and so the future Hokage didn't even make much of a dent in the money he now had. He would still be careful with his spending though, if only out of respect for Zabuza, and also because of his experience in living with very little to spend. The middle house would be furnished however, and he now had transformed clones out and about buying couches, tables, paintings, and every other thing he had never been able to acquire with his meager income. He wanted to live with style from now on, and he had a way to do it, so he did it. He'd even finally have a flat screen and a new Tempur-Pedic king-sized bed by the day's end. The blonde didn't even acknowledge Sasuke or ask Sakura out before bolting away, leaving an agitated Sasuke to reject Sakura's advance once again. He wanted to get home as fast as he could to dispel his study clones and grab his scrolls, and the only things he would be taking to his new home would be his plants, his nightcap, and frog pajamas he had received from someone as a present on one of his more horrible birthdays. Everything else would be left, and he'd also be leaving a decoy clone there daily to make sure everyone still thought he lived there. It wasn't a secret where the Jinchuriki laid his head at, and that had also often resulted in his home being vandalized by a few of the Boulder Leaf villagers. No more. Now he'd live where no one could find him, and he'd always be sure to cover his trail with transformations to keep it that way. 2 hours later, oh my aching head. As Naruto finally woke up after dispelling all his clones at once, the blonde made a mental note to never do it again. It was like getting hit with 20 flashbacks at once, and the rush of information was enough to nearly put the boy in a coma. He felt like he had been clubbed by Sakura 5 times at once, which was a terrifying thought. After picking himself up off the floor, Naruto began trying to sift through everything he had learned from his brief study that only lasted about 2 hours while he had waited for Kakashi from the shadows. He had begun learning more about the snow leopard style of taijutsu that Haku created, along with the names and effects of all the jutsu the Mist Nin had in their possessions. He also learned a little about poisons, and apparently Haku had favored monkshood, which was both pretty and highly poisonous. Remembering hearing Ino brag about the flower shop her family owned and how she earned money for new clothes, the blonde decided to go and see if he could buy some later. The snow leopard taijutsu mainly focused on stealth and speed, which was why there were no kata for Naruto to try and learn. Instead, the illustrations all showed various attacks as related to the enemy's position, and it held side notes on everything shown to give examples of what principles were being followed. The good example of this was a picture that showed a ninja crouched down and leaning forward under an opponent striking horizontally. The ninja crouching was stabbing a needle in the enemy's leg, directly in the tendon, so as to hamper movement. Then the next illustration showed the crouched ninja rising and spinning behind the enemy, grasping the neck or stabbing the other senbon into the exposed neck or the base of the skull. The style seemed highly geared toward shuriken jutsu, and that was something that Naruto definitely sucked at. It would be even worse with needles, as the boy found out while trying to stick a few into his wall from short distance. They just bounced off, and the other problem was the fact that Naruto couldn't even get 3 needles into each hand. He had no idea how Haku had managed to do so as fast as she did, and it looked like things weren't going to be as easy as he thought they would be because of shadow clones. Leaving his apartment in a rush, the blonde left to his new home contemplating about the issue the entire way there. After making it to his new home in the same disguise he used before to buy the home, he dropped the transformation in the middle of his newly furnished living room, amazed that things had improved so quickly for him. He now had 3 houses, millions of ryo, new clothes, weapons, knowledge of his clan, justice, and even bingo books to learn about other missing nin. Shit, he even had a lead on someone who would definitely help the Kiri takeover, mate Terumi. Plopping down on his new leather couch as he remembered that his clones were handling all the utility bills, he didn't really pay much attention to all his new possessions and decor, but instead still thought about the snow leopard Taijutsu and the Kubikirabacho. The huge Zanbato would be impossible for him to wield because he could barely lift it, let alone swing it. The Senbon needles would be very difficult to use like Haku did, especially with 3 in each hand between his fingers. Haku didn't even pull them out from anywhere, since she just formed them from ice already in her hands. He mused he could try sealing to solve that problem, or maybe he could even try and learn to use ice techniques. There was also the possibility of using shadow clones to transform into Senbon. The main problem was that he had no idea how to use ice techniques, despite the fact that it was mentioned that Haku mixed up water and wind chakra to make the element. He hadn't even known about elemental chakra a few hours ago. He just thought you could do awesome stuff if you learned the jutsu. Apparently he was wrong. Since he had a week off, he'd just have to train himself into the ground like he had done for so long, except now he had material to study instead of just improvising. He'd need to strength train in order to use Zabuza's blade, and he could handle that personally, since he didn't think his clones doing strength training would accomplish anything. They definitely could help him learn Taijutsu, ninjutsu, and study though. Walking out to his backyard and examining the scenery, Naruto let out a sigh of contentment and thanked Zabuza for everything. He wouldn't be failing in his mission, and he knew the longer it took, then the more people like him and Haku would die for no good reason. He noticed one thing about his new housing though, and if he wanted to be able to train in his yard, it'd have to be rectified as soon as possible. There was no water whatsoever, unless you counted the faucet for the hose on his cozy patio. Maybe he could change that. He did have the ryo after all. A little later, Yamanaka flower shop. While he had a few clones that were currently digging a very large hole in his new backyard, Naruto decided to go to the Yamanaka flower shop and see if he could score some Monkshoodak wolfbane. He honestly wasn't the type to use poison in battle normally, but something that Haku had written stuck firmly to him and ingrained itself in his beliefs. You use everything at your disposal to get the mission finished. It could probably cover a broad scope of things that pertains to life in general, and Naruto saw that many of the principle Haku spoke of follows along those lines. Your disposition in battle should be the same as your everyday life. That's why neither Haku nor Zabuza took an actual combat stance when they fought. They just stood normally. It was actually quite scary when Naruto thought about it. He could just imagine walking by someone on the street and then suddenly being killed by the unassuming assailant. Haku apparently had killed quite a few people using this exact method and disappeared shortly thereafter. There was also the fact that not taking a stance gave nothing away about how you fought. If you saw a person take an obvious wrestling stance by squatting low with open hands, it'd be safe to assume that they utilized grappling technique. If someone squared up with you and lifted up their clenched fists while tucking their chin, it would be safe to say they used a striking method like boxing. But when someone just stood, it didn't show anything. You wouldn't know how they would come at you until they did, and that concept greatly appealed to the blonde ninja. Unpredictability. Ino certainly seemed to be surprised seeing the familiar form of the village prankster and class clown visit her family's shop, if the wide-eyed expression was anything to go by. "And Naruto, is that you? Like my new look, Ino-chan?" he asked her, rubbing the back of his head and smiling at her in his trademark foxy manner. The Yamanaka heiress couldn't hide her blush as she roamed Naruto's body checking out his new digs. It wasn't anything extravagant, just some typical black Anbu type gear that was just a little baggy on his frame. He also had some high-quality steel-soled black sandals, and to finish it, he wore a large white hooded cloak with long sleeves that was reversible. The other side was all black, and there were seals on it that prevented it from getting worn or dirty. Naruto figured it belonged to Haku, and although he didn't get off wearing women's clothing, the Anbu gear was unisex, and the cloak was a cloak. Some part of him still wanted to stand out a bit despite his recent improvements in common sense, and as a result there were orange flames that went along the bottom of the cloak. He was actually using a transformation for the flames, and he thought they made him look badass to the point of wanting to retake his registration photo. He'd have to ask the old man later. "Wow, you look great." It suits you and I like the thing you're doing with the headband. Naruto could only blush and fiddle with the mentioned cloth that was to the side exactly like Zabuza had his. He had thought it looked so cool even during the wave mission, and Zabuza was the only shinobi he had ever seen to wear it in such a fashion. In a way it kind of shouted, "Fuck protecting my forehead cause you'll be dead before you even realize it." At least Haku had said something like that in an interesting entry after she had a long talk with Zabuza. "Thanks Ino-chan. So how's shinobi life treating you? Shouldn't you be out training or on a mission or something?" The blonde Yamanaka frowned as if she had a bad taste in her mouth upon hearing his question, and she quickly replied. "Yeah, if I wasn't in a team with a bunch of lazy asses. I mean all my sensei does is smoke and play shogi with Shikamaru who does nothing but stare at the clouds. And Chouji is no better munching away at his potato chips like some sort of junkie. I hate to admit it, but I'd kill to switch spots with Sakura. Yeah that does sound like it'd suck hey I know. I've been training a lot and I could use a partner Databeo. What do you say?" The boy asked excited at the prospect of making a friend out of Ino. He didn't really know her much, but from what he saw she was energetic and upbeat like he was, if a bit bossy. Well, super bossy. But how could he complain? "Partner? My oh my Naruto I didn't know you thought of me like that already asking me out on dates and to be your partner." She playfully teased giving him a look that caused his stomach to flip and his face to flush. He would have given anything to have Sakura look at him like that. Waving his hands in desperation and sputtering out his answer he yelled. What I didn't mean I was just saying." Cutting him off with laughter that made him more than a bit confused Ino told him. "I was just messing with you Naruto. I still like Sasuke no, and I won't let forehead fat beat me in winning him over. But I'd be happy to train with you sometime since I don't have anything better to do anyways." Not even being put down by the fact that she liked Sasuke and basically said if she had something to do she wouldn't join him, Naruto smoked brightly saying. "Great. I can't wait Databeo. By the way Sasuke hasn't even acted like Sakura exists honestly, and after our last mission which was insane he'd gotten even worse. I don't think he likes anyone at all the team." Outing at Naruto's insult of her crush she didn't say anything about it but instead questioned him about what he meant. "What do you mean? What mission?" Naruto then gave her the rundown of everything that happened in Wave, except for his relationship with Haku and Zabuza. He also told the amazed girl about what happened when they returned and how Sasuke unlocked the Sharingan and saw him as a rival. A bitter rival. Wow he must be so strong to fight missing nin like that. And he unlocked his Sharingan that's so cool. I bet he looks so hot with red eyes. Naruto nearly vomiting on the spot from Ino's powerful fandualism decided to move along before his ramen found its way out of his stomach. Hell the thought of Sasuke being hot nearly made him hurl up something from deep within his intestines. Something undigested and putrid. It was time for him to go. Ino-chan I was wondering if you guys sold any monkshood here I was trying to get a whole lot of it to plant around my yard and I also wanted any books you have on growing plants too. The girl looked truly surprised by his requests but she seemed to understand why he would want the poisonous flower that was her favorite because of its color. After calming a little she told him. "You're damned right we got it, it's my favorite after all. Just come by tomorrow and I'll have some grown a little for you, it takes a little time, but I can handle it. There are books over there if you want to check 'em all out." Looking confused and more than a little curious Naruto asked her. "Wait what do you mean you'll have enough grown a little tomorrow, shouldn't it take at least a couple weeks?" Smirking at Naruto's confusion and feeling a bit elated due to hearing about Sasuke rejecting Sakura, Ino decided to inform Naruto a little bit about Yamanaka-style horticulture. "Well normally, but plants use energy from the sun to grow. We feed our plants chakra-rich water and it speeds everything up. It takes a lot of chakra, but I'll have some sprouts for you before you know it." As an image of the first Hokage flashed in his mind's eye, Naruto started creeping Ino out because of the shit-eating grin he got as he turned and went to search for books. Fukuku get ready for plant release Naruto. Next chapter the results of training. The day after leaving Yamanaka flower shop, Naruto could be found doing a multitude of exercises in his revamped training regimen. He honestly just made up some new exercises by combining a few of them in different ways and so he was now doing crunches while standing on the side of a tree in his backyard. The other thing he had been doing was squats while lifting the kubikirabacho above his head. He figured that the best way to get used to it was just to train with it all the time and so he had been up and at it since early in the morning. His clones from the previous day had finished the hole for the in-ground for the pool he was trying to make himself to practice in and so he was now waiting for some clones to return with supplies and instructions from the pool supply store on the other side of the village. He had seen a few pools around before and he thought they were made of concrete whenever he gate-hopped and snuck in when no one was around. It seemed being such a troublemaker had benefits after all. He still hadn't tried all of his jutsu yet and he was looking forward to it after his clones that were scattered about finished their task. A fence. A huge fence of epic proportions. His trip to Yamanaka flower shop had resulted in more than just flowers and poison, as the blonde had inadvertently stumbled upon his first jutsu that he created. After asking Ino about different types of plants, the conversation had eventually shifted to bamboo, which Naruto was absolutely fascinated with to the point of focusing completely on it. While he had seen various architecture that utilized the hardy grass, he didn't know just how perfect it really was. On one hand, bamboo even without chakra boosting its growth could grow 3 feet a day. 3 freaking feet. When you considered the fact that it was nearly as strong as steel like Ino said, and a deadly cyanide was produced when its cells were destroyed, then it was just great. While Naruto didn't understand much about cells and things like that yet, Ino had dumbed it down enough for him to understand that they were like building blocks, so if you hurt the bamboo, then a toxin would be produced. The ideas had exploded from Naruto like diarrhea when he drank that spoiled milk a few times, and his unconventional thinking had already thought of so many uses for it. First off was a tall fence around his yard, tall and thick enough that no one could see inside unless they trespass. The second idea was traps. If he could drop seeds on the ground during battle and grow them out quickly, he may be able to use an attack like Haku used when she made ice spikes shoot from below. It could be used in direct attack too, if he could manipulate how the bamboo grew so that it shot at an angle that would skewer the enemy. Lastly, it would definitely be a great defense if it was as strong as steel. He could just imagine the look on Sasuke's face when he shot a fireball just to have it blocked by Naruto's bamboo barrier. The large flaw he saw was that he needed some water to do it, but he found out that his chakra was so powerful that bamboo grew almost immediately even from seeds. It would sprout at a slightly tilted angle and would stretch beyond his height within a second and keeping going. He knew it wasn't Mokuton, the first Hokage's famous bloodline that allowed to trees and plant life to be grown. This was just him growing a plant from a seed and manipulating it a little with his chakra, an energy source that was more concentrated than the sun's rays. He started to bend it with his chakra, and he found that it was actually easier for him to do than sticking a leaf to himself. Kakashi said that Naruto had more chakra than anyone in the village, and seeing that the larger techniques were easier than the small ones, Naruto knew he needed to work more on his control. It was fortunate that a few chakra control exercises that Haku had written about mentioned water walking, along with Haku's water and wind manipulation. When his pool was made, he'd be working on standing in water using his chakra until he could do it on the tips of his toes. Then after that, he'd have to try skating on his toes while using chakra to increase his speed and fluidity in movement. It was actually a part of the footwork of the snow leopard style to distribute weight in every part of his feet in differing methods for adaptability and transition and balance. Standing on one leg and doing squats was an important exercise to do, and spinning while moving the body like it was water was too. Crashing waves should be envisioned as if you were the ocean itself when you twisted and bursted forward. Haku also wrote of something that blew Naruto's mind to the point where he could integrate it into everything he did. It was like the figure 8, but you should envision it overlapping with itself in every angle. It was like an 8 that was crossed over itself 4 times like X and plus. Then there was another that was 3-dimensional as in coming toward you and going away from you with dips and rises. It was supposed to let you come from limitless angles once you learned to link attacks together so that you could do multiple X cutting attacks at once. Not just cuts, but stabs could also come from these angles, and this left Naruto with a lot to build off of. Haku didn't really use a set style, she kept developing it using techniques that worked for her, something that Zabuza encouraged. After a little reflection, Naruto knew that he would do the same thing, especially considering the Sharingan. If Sasuke somehow stole his moves later with the oh-so-great Sharingan, then he at least wanted to be able to kick his ass and switch styles. He was trying to figure out how to ask Kakashi-sensei to help him without getting rejected though. His shuriken jutsu just needed work, flat out. Still, the blonde was making phenomenal improvements, especially considering that he could now do the shadow clone jutsu with a half seal. The problem was that it took him about 4 seconds to gather and focus the chakra, and if he released it wrong, then if he tries to make 5 clones he'd only get 2. At least he could do it, and that was pretty much thanks to the dozen-plus clones he had training the technique. Going through a series of attacks on his clones who were moving slowly, he was sure to move precisely so he could make sure he was striking the right targets. If you held a senbon in your hand and let the tips come out of both ends, then you could attack with the 2 points in the same swing. This was for efficiency, so that in essence you were supposed to attack and defend simultaneously while pushing forward and around the enemy. Once a weak point was identified based on positioning, you could then attack or feint using the legs to attack while using the needles as projectiles. It was basically an aggressive counter-attacking style which was a perfect match for the Uzumaki. He had been purely attack and dodge before, but now he was learning much more, as Haku believed defense was more important while learning than attack. Defense, however, was not sufficient in battle, and attack was the only thing that would result in victory. Lunging forward and to the side while grabbing a straight punch with his hand and moving beside his clone, he stabbed it in the temple with a senbon as he spun around it continuing forward. It definitely helped that Heika's style didn't take a stance, and because of that Naruto didn't waste time making mistakes, especially with how the pictures were arranged. Because they were so simple, he just started off slow and sped up with his other clones, doing the other sequences that were shown. Because of the infinite SIGN8 handwork application, he knew that every strike he threw should actually be multiple attacks that could change course mid-swing to counter. It would make the style basically unstoppable because of its counter-attacking nature, quick strikes, and unlimited adaptability. Haku likened herself to a sword, much like Zabuza's Zanbato, which would rebuild itself with iron from the blood it drew. Naruto was amazed that Kubikirabacho had this ability, and although he was saddened that Zabuza didn't really leave behind any writings, he was still happy about the jutsu. As far as likening oneself to a sword, this seemed to be an important aspect of Heika's jutsu, since her movements could also be used with swords. You were supposed to see your body as moving with the swiftness of a sword, decisive and true. You were supposed to be like water flowing and being able to change. Change was life. Stillness was death. Flexibility was life. Rigidness was death. Just as much as having the mindset of be like an ocean was, the mindset of being a sword was there as well. Naruto could appreciate this concept and took it to heart. After a while of various taijutsu training using groups of clones that would disappear before long, Naruto knew that he would get good really soon if he kept it up. Deciding to practice his jutsu scrolls as he saw the last of the bamboo he was growing as a fence come to life before him, he grabbed the scrolls and made his way to an emptier part of the yard. The first thing he'd be doing was the hidden mist jutsu and the shunshin, although the water dragon had him damn near drooling since the other day. He was going to really focus on water manipulation and shadow clones though, since that would be central to the style he was creating. If he had his way, he'd have the best assassination style that ever existed before long. Besides the shunshin, mist, and water dragon jutsu was the water encampment wall, great waterfall, water prison, and water bullet jutsu, which were all Zabuza's. He could only tell because the rough handwriting and the lack of detail, and he figured it was because he gave it to Haku that he wrote it in the first place. There was also the jutsu that Haku created, which showed her mastery of water manipulation because of its use of a single hand seal. It actually combined the hidden mist jutsu and a theory she made when she heard of the second Hokage who was famous for water techniques. She thought that she could start using the hidden mist jutsu to train and after a while be able to concentrate the mist closer along the ground. Then she could multiply its mass with her water chakra, which was a basis for jutsu period, and be a key to collect water from moisture in the air like Tobirama Senju. What was ironic was that Naruto ended up being inspired by Hashirama the other day, and now he technically had a way to use their jutsu, even if not as skilled as them. Especially the first, since he couldn't create plant life. He would just use bamboo-inspired moves that would only be a little similar to wood release. The jutsu Haku created from the hidden mist technique was the 1000 water needles of death, which Naruto recalled seeing from the distance during the bridge battle. It was the jutsu that also used her principle of simultaneously attacking and defending, since she would grab the arm suppressing the weapon, stomp the foot disabling movement, and sending the needles from every direction blocking any escape, considering you could move with broken toes. She also had an ice version, in which she used wind jutsu to freeze the water needles. While he felt it would probably take a long time to accomplish, Naruto had a feeling that he could do the ice version if he trained hard enough, as just a little earlier he was shocked to learn he had a wind and water nature just like Haku. He literally couldn't ask for anything better, especially considering Haku had a basic wind manipulation method and a slightly harder one. You first had to cut a leaf with your chakra by grinding it against itself in a thin line. After you cut the leaf you were supposed to cut into a mud cake and then rock eventually. Naruto also considered that after rock you could try steel, but he'd have to see about that later. He had clones attempting to cut the leaf, and he also had a clone in his kitchen using the sink to saturate the water inside with chakra. Then he'd have to try moving it around in different ways and eventually be able to hold an orb around his hand. This was also the basis of the water prison, although the orb was a lot bigger and you were supposed to force water down the enemy's lungs, although if they used their chakra to block it, you would have trouble drowning them. He even had a clone in the bathroom attempting to saturate the water in the tub through his feet, which was very difficult. That would be key in learning the water dragon and the great waterfall. Naruto also had an interesting idea with seals concerning water, and so the blonde found he had his hands full. Good thing he had clones. The first attempts were all busts. The hidden mist jutsu didn't look very hard, but the lack of control Naruto had really made it difficult for him. He quickly decided to make clones and have them to train however, because of an interesting thought that popped into his mind. Kakashi said Naruto had more chakra than the Hokage, who was the strongest in the village. He also said the smaller your chakra, the easier to control, which explained Sakura's ease in completing tree walking. Since his shadow clone split his chakra up, then he should be able to learn the jutsu quicker because his clones would have less chakra to have to guide. He couldn't find any flaws in the logic and so he kept on pushing himself in his strength training. Lifting the Zanbato above his head would probably be hardest, but then again he felt swinging it and then reversing its path by swinging it back the other way would be really difficult too. He didn't have any kata to use or even techniques from Zabuza. He did remember when Zabuza threw the sword at them, nearly decapitating his whole team and Tazuna at the same time. He also recalled the spinning back kick that he caught Kakashi-sensei with, as well as the way he stood behind his sword and guarded sometimes. That was all he had to go by however, but he had a hunch that using Snow Leopard style would work fine with a few tweaks. He just needed to get stronger. A few hours later, knock knock knock, lifting his head from the book on Genjutsu theory that he was currently reading a bit slowly, Naruto rose from his white leather couch and walked to his front door in his transformation. He basically just used his sexy jutsu form with straight dark blue hair because of his secret crush on Yuki Fujika's. Oh, what he would give to meet her and do everything he dreamed of doing to Sakura. Blushing as he opened the door, the transformed brunette was taken back by who was standing there. While he had filed for D-rank mission involving helping construction of his pool, he didn't expect the workers to be people he knew. Standing before the familiar faces of Team 8, which consisted of Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburam, and their Jonin instructor Kurenai Yuhi. He had recognized Kiba first however, as the dog Shinobi had definitely had the most contact with him of the group. Kiba and his nin dog Akamara seemed to notice Naruto as well, both of them sniffing the peculiar scent of ramen and fox that they'd recognize anywhere. Shino also seemed to take notice, his kikai buzzing without constraint because of the familiar powerful chakra they felt. Kiba, Shino, what is it? Kurenai instantly noticed her team's behavior as their employer opened the door and looked on in surprise. While she could feel the faint hint of chakra usage coming from the girl, she knew for a fact that no Genjutsu was being used and she was ready for anything. Just what the hell are you playing at, Naruto? This had better not be a prank. Kiba yelled at the Uzumaki, pointing an accusing finger at him. Hinata's eyes seemed to widen as a blush was instantly on her face hearing her crush's name spoken, and she looked confused until she activated her Byakugan unconsciously out of excitement to see if it was true. Then Naruto-kun. She promptly passed out. Hinata Kiba shouted, worried about his teammate's safety. Naruto was about to just close the door and say screw it when Kurenai stopped it with her foot saying. So you're that Naruto Uzumaki I've heard about. Just why are you here and why are you transformed? Sighing as Kiba turned to him looking very angry, the Inuzuka cut him off yelling. And what did you do to Hinata? Hold on a second. I didn't do anything and this is my house. I'm in disguise because I'm a ninja and I don't want anyone to know where I live. So please just keep it down. Is that a problem? Even Shino was surprised by the logical explanation the class clown offered and he bug user and Kurenai both answered at the same time saying. There is no problem with that logic. It is fine. I understand, I use misdirection myself so I get it. Looking at the group with relief as Kiba shook Hinata awake, Naruto opened his door up wide and told them. Thanks, you guys can come in if you want and I'll tell you about what I need done while I make us some tea or something. Come on. As the Jinchuriki-led teammate a little bit aggravated because of being identified so soon, he pointed to his new couch as they took on the decor saying. Feel free to sit while I make some tea and I'll tell you what I want you to do. The blonde's transformation suddenly dropped, allowing teammate to lay eyes on his true form for the first time in a while. What happened next was actually pretty interesting, even more so than Shino would have thought possible. Kurenai-sensei went completely red upon laying eyes on Naruto, and Hinata actually drooled a little before suddenly collapsing in a familiar pool of blood that shot from her nose like a what the Hinata's a pervert. Wait, that means. Naruto could finally connect the dots now that he could see the correlation between how the Hokage turned red and exploded with blood shooting from his nostrils and Hinata doing the same as soon as she saw him. That why she always passed out when he was around. She was a pervert. For him. Naruto truly couldn't comprehend such a thing as it was a new occurrence that he never would have thought possible. Hinata wasn't really weird, she was just some sort of shy pervert for him. And as Naruto looked at the beautiful form of her sensei, he saw that she was red in the face too, with her mouth slightly slack. A small dribble of drool could barely be seen on the corner of her mouth and her eyes were glazed in nostalgia mixed with lust. No one knew about her lifetime crush on the fourth Hokage, the man who she had a thing for ever since she was a little girl, first learning to be a kunoichi. She had just been jailbait then, and Minato Namikaze never really reacted to her attraction to him the few times she saw him in person. Naruto was exactly like the fourth as far as his features went. The whisker marks were different though and gave him a cute and unique look. His hair was nearly the same, his eyes were a different blue than the cold calculating eyes of Minato. All in all, while very similar, Naruto had a more rough and tumble look about him and she thought that while the fourth was more stunning, Naruto was very attractive himself. She could only just stare at him as her mind slowly rebooted as Kiba and Shino observed everything. She was busy imagining how he'd look after a few more years, and the images her creative mind were conjuring were enough to make her a little bit wet below the belt. Anyway, I need you to help me place cinder block around the inside of this hole I made in the backyard, and then we'll have to use some cement to line it evenly. At least that's what the pool guy said. I just wanted to be sure I followed the instructions right because this is very important to me. That's why I asked for someone help. He explained as he placed his hand in a half-ram seal and used the shadow clone jutsu to make them some tea and make sure the supplies were ready. Kurenai just nodded dumbly, not trusting herself to speak, and since Shino nodded and Hinata was unconscious, Kiba spoke up looking at Naruto with a peculiar expression. How did you do that, dude? The what? Naruto asked, oblivious of what Kiba spoke of. Kiba had definitely seen the way Kurenai looked at Naruto just now, and although he instantly went into denial because of her attraction to the dead last, he felt the need to assert himself in front of her. How'd you make real clones, with a half seal? You were the dead last in the academy, was that all just an act? Naruto looking taken aback, not fully realizing how difficult the feat really was, schooled himself and decided he'd look cool and go with the flow. Maybe I am a ninja and ninja have their secrets, right? I'll just tell you to never underestimate me, Dadabeo. Oh yeah, well even if you were faking that doesn't mean you can take me. Kiba declared, trying his best to radiate dominance and make Naruto intimidated. Kiba. Stop being rude to our client, this isn't the time and place for that. We're on a mission, remember, Kurenai scolded the Inuzuka, who was busy puffing his chest out and staring down Naruto. No, it's alright Kurenai, if it's a fight he wants, then you guys should come train with me and Ino in a few days. I'll show you just how strong I really am, Kiba. Believe it. Hey, don't call her that, dead last. Kiba shouted, getting angry as Kurenai blushed again from his unintended compliment. Naruto had never seen such a beautiful woman as Kurenai, and he hadn't even realized he had been comparing her beauty to the famous actor Yuki until he already blurted it out. The blonde's face went completely red as he processed what he had just called her, and the embarrassed Uzumaki could only stare at her gorgeous red eyes and try to stutter out an apology. Sorry Kurenai, I didn't mean to disrespect you or anything. It's just you're like a princess when I look at you, and I just said what I thought. Kurenai, for all her experience as a renowned expert kunoichi, just couldn't stay her usual stoic self around Naruto, her fangirl days crashing back into her full blast because of his resemblance to the fourth. It didn't help that Naruto had just called her princess twice, and the thing about it was that he said it without thinking. The Jinjutsu expert almost wanted to jump the Uzumaki in a very Anko-like manner, but she managed to barely contain the blush and warm feeling that was spreading in her core. She needed to get a grip, she was 10 years his senior for Kama's sake. For some odd reason that kind of turned her on even more, and she had to turn away from Naruto to give her reply. It's fine Naruto-kun, thank you for the compliment. So a pool you say? She had to thank Kami when the kettle began to whistle, distracting Naruto's eyes from roaming her body like he was doing. She saw how he looked at her, gazing at her hair, eyes and curves that many men in the village likened to that of a supermodel. It was refreshing to see a man appreciate something other than her breasts and ass, and Naruto had spent most of his staring looking at her eyes and face as if in a daze. Yep, and I need it finished ASAP. I can supply plenty of clones though, so you guys don't need to work unless you want to. I just wanted to make sure it gets done right, you know. He answered cheerfully, going and preparing the tea in the new tea set he had bought. Sounds fine. Hinata can even use her Byakugan to make sure everything is even. We can start when Hinata wakes up, okay? Great. Oh, what's a Byakugan, by the way? After Kurenai explained about the Hyuga clan Kekai Genkai that allowed 360-degree vision and telescopic sight, along with chakra vision, Naruto looked fascinated at the prospect and wondered how effective their gentle fist really was. They ended up discussing many of the other clans of the Leaf, with Kiba boasting about the Inuzuka and Shino, only giving a very short explanation of the Aburum, in which he just said, "We use our parasitic insects for combat and espionage." Naruto, while a little bit weary of a bug hive inside of his home, still thought it was kind of cool, and voicing his opinion to Shino, he managed to sort of make a friend out of him. Shino even invited him to join him in searching for new insects, and Naruto, being Naruto, just couldn't refuse. Naruto eventually asked Kurenai if she was from the Uchiha clan because of her eyes and hair, and he was a bit surprised at the annoyance he saw in her features as she gave him an answer. "No Naruto-kun, I am not an Uchiha. Their clan was massacred years ago, and now your teammate Sasuke Uchiha is the last remaining Uchiha in the village." What happened? Where am I? Hinata moaned as her eyes fluttered open and she regained her bearings. Naruto didn't know exactly what to do and so opted to just give everyone their tea and go outside, telling them he was ready when they were. Truth be told, he was exceedingly nervous around Kurenai and Hinata as he was staring to crush on Kurenai, and Hinata was apparently a pervert for him. What was he supposed to do? A few images of fondling Hinata and Kurenai at the same time while they kissed each other materialized in his head, and Naruto knew one thing for sure. Crushing down his perverted thoughts, he knew this was gonna be a long day. 4 days later, it was early afternoon at training ground 8, and Naruto Uzumaki was waiting ecstatic at the chance to train with his new friends. He had been training 24/7 because of his clones working around the clock, and even now his large square in-ground pool was full of training doppelganger. Well, it was only 5 feet deep, that was actually perfect for what he was using it for, and it wasn't swimming. During the last 4 days, he had learned the Shunshin, Hidden Mist, and Water Bullet Jutsu, but the other law were significantly more difficult. The Water Dragon actually took like 40 seals to complete, and Naruto hadn't even memorized them all yet to even try it. His water walking hadn't improved like he thought it would, but at least he was staring to get a foothold before he fell inside. Or at least his clones did. Naruto had been training his strength by wielding the Kubikirabacho and his speed by practicing Shunshin. The body flicker didn't have an explanation for its normal usage, as Zabuza must have just explained it to Haku and gave her the scroll with the instructions. As a result, Naruto didn't know that it was normally used just for simple transport and rarely in combat. As a result, he had been using the technique as much as possible with the intent to use it in combat, which had led to more than a few hard impacts with the trees in his yard and the bamboo surrounding it. Still though, the fact that he could now disappear and reappear in a burst of speed greatly increased his ability, although his vision lagged and it took a moment to coordinate himself to attack. His taijutsu also was better after his studies, and since Kurenai had gotten him interested in Genjutsu, he had bought a book on Genjutsu theory that was also being studied. He had been so busy that he hadn't even read through the bingo books yet, instead choosing to use all his clones to make himself better. It was only today that he had decided to crack the books open, and he had a clone going through all the issues that Zabuza had been collecting for Kami knows how long. As everyone began to show up one by one, Naruto could only grin thinking about how he would show them just who would be the 5th Hokage. Hope you like Bamboo Mist Aburama type Naruto add in some sealing, silent killing, chakra chains, poison, and Shunshin, and we got a super cool Naruto that's not up. Chunin exams will be legendary, although I initially wanted more spying in response to Sasuke having Sharingan. Anywhere review and give suggestions, and never assume pairings because even I am unsure about it. Thanks. Practically bouncing around in excitement as Shino arrived, Naruto greeted his bug-using friend loudly with a smile and a wave that was returned by a simple nod and stoic good afternoon. The two of them barely got to talk about fire ants, which Naruto brought up when Hinata appeared, and even though Naruto was at a loss for what to do about her, he gave her a warm greeting like he had just given Shino. And she slumped to the ground again. It was actually much worse than it had previously been. Ever since Naruto had changed outfit, she couldn't even be conscious in his immediate vicinity. A minute later, Kurenai appeared in a swirl of leaves greeting the two genin present and automatically went to check on Hinata. The only reason Naruto hadn't was because Shino had assured him her vitals were fine and he didn't want to get close to the girl he had been having dirty thoughts about. Kiba and Ino seemed to arrive at nearly the same time a couple minutes later, and so now that everyone had arrived, it was time to get things underway. Hinata started coming to after a while, and Kurenai, seeing her young charge awakening, finally joined the group of genin before anything started prematurely. Kiba and Naruto were already butting heads, and it didn't help that Ino had jumped in taking Naruto's side and calling Kiba dog breath. After Kiba responded saying she was a useless fangirl, Kurenai sighed but still addressed them all saying. Alright, settle down. Since Kiba challenged Naruto and he accepted, I suppose we can start with sparring so that they can test each other's strength. The only rules I'll place are no crippling and fatal attacks, so jutsu are allowed but only non-lethal force, understood? Naruto, giving a nod with a look of determination, began walking to the center of the training ground at a quick pace with Kiba doing the same, and the Inyazuka was sizing the blonde up the entirety of the short walk with a scowl of distaste. He was looking forward to knocking Kiba down a few pegs, and even though Kurenai was Kiba's sensei, she found herself a little thrilled to see what Naruto was capable of. Ino was loudly cheering the blonde on since she wanted to see Kiba get his ass whooped too, and Shino was watching their every movement with an analytical eye, was curious of Naruto's true skill. He himself had held back a lot during the academy, to the point where he was quite sure he could defeat Sasuke Uchiha, even though no one else knew he could. Hinata was quiet as well, but she was just nervous and hoping that her crush didn't get hurt. "You ready to see who's top dog dead last?" the brazen Inyazuka taunted his rival and stealing Kurenai's heart. "Bring it on, Kiba, but do me a favor and actually be serious. I'll warn you again, don't underestimate me." Naruto shot back with a glare while cracking his knuckles. "Like I need to. In fact, Akamaru, go and watch while I show this loser who's boss," he declared, ordering his nin dog partner to the sideline, who gave a bark in the affirmative. No more words were exchanged as Kiba dropped into his stance by crouching down with his fingers taut, ready to use his claws, bouncing on his toes ready to strike. Naruto just stood normally, although he turned his body to the side so that he was harder to hit in his center line. Haku had repeatedly mentioned this in her Taijutsu writings, since many of the targets she often went for were along the center of the body, where many of the weak points were. After Kurenai gave them the okay to start, Kiba immediately dashed forward, leaping into a few swift claw swipes that came from the side and upward, and Naruto could only sidestep, sending a nicely aimed low side kick that hit him hard in his thigh. Kiba did manage to graze Naruto however, and the Uzumaki now had a scratch on the side of his neck that was shallow, although there was steel soles in Naruto's sandals, made his kick more effective, and this was seen when Kiba stumbled a bit in pain until he squinted his eyes in anger and began growling. Then the dog boy redoubled his assault, and Naruto was so hard pressed by the unorthodox flip kicks and swipes that all he could do was try and evade them. Kiba certainly wasn't a pushover, and Naruto kind of thought that in some ways he was a better fighter than Sasuke was. While he lacked Sasuke's hard-hitting precision, the Inuzuka attacked with ferocity, speed, and unpredictable movements that linked off of flips and pounces. It was time to step it up. As Kiba launched a sidekick with his upper body and arms close to the ground, Naruto, seeing how the boy slightly overextended himself, managed a weak hook strike with the side of his fist, as if he was holding a senbon. Then he tried to spin around Kiba and grab his throat, but he ended up receiving a powerful kick to his shin when Kiba dropped down and hit him with both of his legs extending outward. Naruto had to grunt in pain as he fell to the ground, but he barely managed to force himself up and fight through the pain in his aching leg when Kiba tried to finish him with a pouncing attack. Rolling and rising at once, the Uzumaki lashed out with a kick before leaping back to regroup, but Kiba swatted it to the side and pressed forward, and Naruto's reflexes were thoroughly tested as he evaded the various swipes that came from insane angles. Now it seemed he didn't have a choice despite the fact that he wanted to stick to Taijutsu for this fight, but he'd be damned if he lost in front of Kurenai Hyena. Kurenai narrowed her eyes at the sloppy flips Naruto used to avoid Kiba while he prepared his jutsu, and she made a mental note to tell him to improve his acrobatics as soon as possible. His movement lacked grace and efficiency, although she did admit that his Taijutsu was alright for a genin. Kiba already displayed low chunin rank Taijutsu since he had been training in the Inu style his entire life. Naruto however was more like a high-level genin, with hints of chunin level peeking through every so often, and he knew how to think on his feet. As Naruto landed from his impromptu flip to the side, Kiba changed his movement to chase Naruto down. The Uzumaki had both of his hands in a half seal with a tactic he had made the other day already in mind. As Kiba drew closer and closer, Naruto leapt back focusing, and just before the Inuzuka landed a powerful downward claw, Naruto just disappeared. Before Kiba knew it, a team of 4 clones was upon him from all sides, and he couldn't defend himself from all the blows as they simultaneously jumped into knee strikes, knocking him down. Everyone was surprised by the outcome, especially Ino, who had begun to shout in glee at seeing the dog breath boy get his block knocked off. Kiba, for all his skill and tenacity, was pretty hurt by the pincer-type maneuver that Naruto hit him with, especially because his body didn't move with the blows since he was caught in the middle. Alright, this match is over. That was very impressive, Naruto. You did well too, Kiba, but you should have been serious from the start instead of blowing him off. You didn't even use your 4 legs technique. Kurenai told the 2 combatants. Naruto beamed at the praise and was ecstatic that he impressed his crush, and Kurenai didn't fail to see the blush that he and his clones had as they gazed at her. Maybe she could offer him a few lessons. Although Naruto-kun, I have to say your flipping was horrendous. You really need to work on your acrobatics, but if you want I could give you a few lessons sometime later, okay? She suggested, barely managing to stop herself from blushing because of her hidden agenda. Thanks so much, Kurenai-sensei, I promise I won't waste your time. And I never break a promise, that's my ninja way. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you this new genjutsu I created. I know you're the best in the village, so I want your opinion. Naruto, excited, declared, his blush fading a little as he gave her his trademark foxy smile. Excuse me, Naruto-san, but I would also like to test myself against you before you demonstrate your new technique. Shino cut in just as Kurenai smiled at Naruto and was about to tell him to show her. She wasn't bothered by Shino's interruption however, as she was actually a little curious about who would win in a spar. That's what I'm talking about, Shino. Let's do it, Dadabayo. Yes, let us. Shino calmly walked to the center of the field while Kiba pulled himself up with a grimace and Ino asked Hinata who she thought would win between them. Hinata honestly didn't know, but she did inform Ino of Naruto's huge chakra and also of Shino's pure efficiency in his strategy. Naruto hurriedly walked to the center and squared off with Shino, and he found that unlike Kiba, Shino didn't take a stance either. They basically just stood normally across from each other, and somehow Naruto knew he needed to go all out against the Aburam from the get-go. He damn sure didn't want any bugs on him biting and sucking his chakra out. This match will have the same rules as the last. Jutsu allowed, but no deadly force, understood? Kurenai asked as she got ready to give them the okay to begin. After they both nodded, never stopping their staring contest, she gave then the signal to start with a hajime and shined away to where the other genin were. A cloud of insects burst from Shino's sleeves, and Naruto actually became a bit nervous as he leapt back, his hands already in half seals. Shino seemed to notice his disposition and decided to launch a little psychological warfare. It would appear that you are afraid of my Kakashi. Why would I think so? Because I can see the fear in your eyes. Just forfeit and I won't have to send them upon you. His menacing and monotonous voice actually did manage to shake Naruto up a little bit, but the Uzumaki schooled himself and instead gave a shit-eating grin as he began going through a few hand seals for the genjutsu he created. It was actually inspired by both the hidden mist jutsu and the fact that in an interesting entry where Haku spoke of her training with Zabuza, she mentioned he had a chakra shroud that she could actually see. It was wild and untamed like a demon in physical form, and Zabuza's killing intent seemed to skyrocket, which hampered Heika's thinking to the point where she was easy to defeat. Naruto learned a bit about killing intent surprisingly from the taijutsu pages he studied, as it was an integral part of silent killing, which was an integral part of the snow leopard taijutsu style. And so after a little trial and error, he had managed to learn how to manage his spiritual energy by itself, and it only took him imagining the people who used to torment him, hurting the people he cared for. Of course he had to channel a large amount of chakra for more potency, and because of his massive reserves and considerable experience in receiving hatred from others, it wasn't hard to tap into his emotional self, especially with his vivid imagination. Right now he was imagining Kurenai being hurt, and although the anger was somewhat forced, the feeling was real as he thought about what he'd do to the idiot that hurt her. And then it happened. The pressure was unbelievable. While it may have been a little weaker than Zabuza's own massive intent, that didn't mean that any genin or even chunin was ready to handle it. Especially a genin with a hive of insects that were instinctual and affected his disposition. As a blood-red mist surrounded Naruto and he focused his killing intent on Shino, the Aburam actually slumped to the ground trembling while Ino followed suit, along with Hinata, who fainted immediately. Kurenai even developed a light sheen of sweat, but she had felt worse before, and being a genjutsu expert, she was very well versed in killing intent. Naruto's was at least mid-jonin level, and it was very intense at that. Almost like a cage, but he must not have had much experience using it. Naruto. That's enough. She declared instantly beside him as his eyes widened in fear because of what he had done. He was just trying to cause Shino to panic, he never thought that nearly everyone would collapse. Kiba only barely managed to stay alert and he was consoling Akamaru, who was whimpering and begging Kiba to protect him. For all his bravado, Kiba knew he wasn't the alpha here anymore. He was beginning to get weary of the prankster now, who knew what he was capable of. Kurenai. I didn't try to. I'm sorry. I just wanted to see if my new genjutsu would work. Her eyes widening, she asked to clarify. That's the genjutsu you created, killing intent with that bloody mist to strike fear. I must say that I'm impressed, but I'd advise you not to use it on comrades if you want them to still be your friends, Naruto-kun. A jonin like me can handle it, but there aren't many genin that would be unaffected by that technique, especially with the intimidation factor from the blood shroud. Nodding with a grave look, Naruto went over to Hinata and Ino because he wasn't sure if Shino's insects would attack him if he got close now. Kurenai, seeing this, went to check on Shino, more than prepared to evade his Kakashi, and after about a minute of hovering over Ino while Kiba petted Akamaru, he finally saw her begun to wake up looking confused before a look of terror flashed in her eyes. Then Naruto, what was that? Ino-chan, I'm so sorry, that was a genjutsu I made to make people afraid. I didn't know it'd affect everything around me cause I practiced by myself and my clones never seemed to be that bad off. I guess it's because of my mission to Wave and that ninja Zabuza I told you about. Kurenai, perking up hearing his explanation as Shino woke up, decided to ask him about his mission. Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the hidden mist. You mean you've heard of him, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asked as Hinata began to stir. Have I heard of him? That man is practically a legend. He slaughtered his entire graduating class before he even entered the academy. To me that's like Itachi Uchiha single-handedly murdering the entire Uchiha clan. For you to have faced him in combat and still be breathing is a blessing, Naruto-kun. The Uzumaki could only nod, knowing full well why Zabuza actually killed everyone that fateful graduation, as his older sister had been raped and slaughtered by the boy she thought loved her. If Haku hadn't spoken of it because it helped steel her resolve to kill, then that tidbit of information would have made him a bit more apprehensive about Zabuza and his humanity. Instead though, it only strengthened his own belief that something needed to be done in the bloody mist and he'd be the one to do it. As Naruto explained more about his first C-rank turned A-rank mission to his intrigued and amazed listeners, Kurenai perked up just before Kiba and Shino did at the same time. Naruto heard around the same time as Kiba the distinct sound of footsteps crushing leaves at a quick pace. Someone was coming. No, scratch that. 3 or 4 people were coming swiftly. After a few moments in which everyone awaited with curiosity, it was surprisingly Hinata who spoke first as the shinobi that came from the tree line was recognized by her. And Neji-san. He hardly even acknowledged she was there, instead staring intently at the yellow-haired Uzumaki, who was wondering who he was. To answer a question, all of the relevant character are 3 years older. I just don't like 12 very much, just my preference. Also I'm thinking of ways to change pairings over time realistically. I mean, all relationship don't last forever. That's life. Anyways, review and thanks. Shout out to Dragonpany, and I am not sure about Carrie, but I know it'll work her in somewhere in the exams. You there, who are you? Asked a brown-haired Hyuga prodigy as he ignored his pathetic cousin and stared intently at the blonde he had seen from several kilometers away. Not only did he see the Uzumaki with the astounding visual ability of his Byakugan, but he also saw what happened to the genin that were gathered in this training ground. While normally he may have not interfered, the fact that Neji himself had felt the killing intent, along with his desire to protect the Hyuga honor, couldn't be ignored. His cousin Hinata had fainted just like the coward she was, and Neji wouldn't tolerate her making the Hyuga clan look weak. Because by proxy that would make him appear weak as well. The name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, the future Hokage. That you can believe. Who are you? Scowling at the blonde, he decided this Naruto had earned the right to know his name as well, not that it would help him. I am Neji Hyuga of the clan Hyuga. You say you wish to be Hokage Uzumaki. It's not just a wish, I'll become Hokage and then I'll protect everyone in the village Databayo. Naruto responded cheerfully. The blonde's cheerfulness would quickly be eliminated however, as Neji spoke his next words, while the Hyuga's teammates listened to the conversation. Preposterous. The only ones who will become Hokage were those who were fated to do so the day they were born. There is no escaping fate, and if you weren't so naive then you would know that out of thousands upon thousands of shinobi, only a handful ever become Kage. And how do you know what my fate is? The last I checked you weren't Kami. Naruto spat, becoming enraged within seconds. Who did this guy think he was? Even so I know you won't be Shadow. I've seen how you foolishly go about pranking and acting childish like an imbecile. You probably won't even make it to Jonin. Neji callously stated with his smooth voice, infuriating Naruto further. This guy was about 10 times worse than Sasuke ever was, and Naruto had only met him a minute ago. Sure, Sasuke was genuinely a spoiled asshole emo with questionable sexuality, but at least he never came out of nowhere and demeaned Naruto. If anything, Sasuke was just antisocial, and surprisingly Naruto was probably the person he was closest to. Sadly ironic because they hated each other, but true nonetheless. Neji though, he was just truly a dick. Even the villagers never came and outright told him he'd never be Hokage, and the dumbasses thought he was a demon fox. Neji most likely didn't know that, but he actually meant that from an unbiased point of view. It pissed Naruto off more than anyone ever had in his entire life. Still he managed a smirk as he found a large flaw in Neji's reasoning. The talk no jutsu would soon be ending, but he still wanted a verbal victory before he beat his ass. If you've seen my pranks, then you would know that I regularly escape from the Anbu Black Ops, and I've been doing it since the first year in the academy. Being shinobi is about stealth, so if you're saying I lack ability then prove it to me here and now. I'm more of a ninja than you'll ever be, asshole. Neji actually looked gobsmacked for a moment, which caused Naruto to smirk in victory at his logical words. The Hyuga's expression changed into that of unbridled rage, and no more words were exchanged before Neji dropped into the gentle fist stance, just as a tall spandex-wearing man with a bowl cut and huge eyebrows appears between them. Neji, your attitude is very unyouthful, and I won't allow this behavior or any harm to fall upon my eternal rival student. Now let's get back to our training ground so we can stroke our flames until they blaze as hot as the sun. Eternal rival? Naruto asked, wondering what the hell this creepy man was talking about. Yes, my eternal rival and your sensei, Kakashi. He hasn't mentioned me to you. Oh no. Well, I am Konoha's beautiful green beast, the one and only Might Guy. Kakashi and I have been rivals as long as I can remember, and I'm ahead of him in our contests with a score of 50 wins and 49 losses. Now Naruto could only look at the energetic man, completely awed with stars in his eyes, remembering how Kakashi had overpowered Zabuza on the bridge near the end of the battle with those vicious backfists. If this guy was stronger than Kakashi-sensei, well damn. Still though, he wanted and needed to teach this Neji a lesson in manners, and his scowl returned in full force. He told Guy. That's awesome, Guy. I'll tell sensei I bumped into you. We were all just sparring here anyway, so please let me fight against Neji. I can take care of myself. Smiling brighter than humanly possible with a twinkle on his teeth, Go gave Naruto the thumbs up and loudly declared. How youthful of you to be training with others besides your team, young Naruto. I'll allow you to spar Neji, but deadly force is strictly prohibited, let me make it clear beforehand, so you'll both know. Nice, give me your word you won't try and kill each other, and I'll let you begin. Looking Guy directly in the eye, Naruto promised, even telling the Jonin his Nindo like he had done earlier. Neji immediately nodded and promised as well, although he coldly stated that killing a failure like Naruto would only soil his hands. And just like that, the genin rivalry of the century had intensified even more, and no matter what Naruto vowed to tear Neji a new one. As he and the Hyuga quickly walked to the center of the training ground, glaring the entire way, Naruto could faintly hear the discussion that the spectators were talking about. They were trying to seduce who they all thought would win, and it was Ino and surprisingly Kiba who had Naruto's back the most. At least as far as who they thought would win. Neji's teammate Rock Lee seemed to consider that Neji may not win because of the information he got from Ino and Kiba, who were both clan heirs. Shino didn't say anything at all, but he clearly was paying a lot of attention to Naruto's every twitch as the blonde took position. Neji's other teammate Tenten was adamant about Neji being the top genin in the leaf, and so Naruto resolved to just prove that wrong with his fists. "Are the both of you ready?" Guy asked, observing them both closely, especially Naruto. As the two enemies both nodded, prepared for combat, Guy signaled the start and disappeared in a burst of speed, arriving next to the other spectators before they could even blink. I wasn't the only one who disappeared, however, as Naruto's body flickered away, since his hands had already been in the half-seal for Shunshin and the half-seal for shadow clones. Reappearing about 40 feet away from Neji, the Uzumaki decided to just demolish him with everything he had. He did decide not to use his bloody mist jutsu, however, only because of his friends that were watching though. It would have been sweet to watch Neji curl up into a ball though. As 5 clones appeared, even Neji was impressed by what happened next, which is probably why he activated his Byakugan. 2 clones transformed into kunai, which Naruto took hold of. The other 2 transformed into crows, flying towards Neji just a little jerky in their technique. The last clone just disappeared in a body flicker, appearing a moment later behind Neji about 30 feet from the Hyuga. As the clone behind Neji went through hand seals, the crows were just getting within range, and when they were close enough they changed back into Naruto already attacking. The first crow came and transformed into a skid like a baseball player, and it rose up into a powerful jumping knee strike that Neji sidestepped with ease. The other crow came from above and to the side, transforming already coming down in a strong roundhouse kick aimed at the Hyuga's skull. Ducking under the assault, the jumping knee clone used the other clone's back to jump into 2 spinning straight kicks, but it was dispelled by the swift kick that Neji unleashed to intercept it. As Neji assaulted the second clone with a flurry of palm strikes, he only narrowly escaped the shaky water bullet that grazed his shoulder, causing Tenten to gasp in shock as Naruto actually landed a hit. Byakugan. And so Neji was now serious, no longer simply looking down at Naruto as a failure. No, Naruto was worse than a failure. He was a fool who thought he could defy fate, but that would be fixed very soon. His water bullet clone a bit drained because of his poor chakra control, the doppelganger charged with its hands in half seals, causing Neji to examine its approach with shock. Then the clone disappeared in a flicker, reappearing in a poof of smoke as 2 more clones appeared beside it as it led the assault. Naruto stood by and observed, holding his kunai clones as Neji tore through their clone attack, using his fingertips to jab the outstretched arms and legs of his clones when they tried to land hits. So he attacked the arms as well. That wasn't good. Naruto could see that beating Neji wouldn't be as easy as Kiba, no, not at all. But it was possible. The thing was, he couldn't use smoke to obscure his vision like he did with Sasuke team, and he didn't want to just overrun him with clones, although that was an option. He could probably end it right away if he used his bloody mist jutsu, but his friends were around and he didn't want to scare them all off. Especially when Kurenai just told him he shouldn't use it on or around comrades. Even if he shunshined, Neji was too swift and he'd be caught during the brief moment when he balanced himself. That basically left his kunai clones, crow clones, and the water bullet, since he assumed the hidden mist jutsu wouldn't work if the Byakugan threw it. While he was curious to test it out, he didn't want to risk giving this asshole the advantage. Thinking quickly as Neji burst toward him at high speed, Naruto threw the 2 kunai at nearly the same time, and the knives flew through the air while he used half seals, once more frustrating Neji. The first clone transforming was dispelled as Neji evaded its sidekick white, tapping it without even turning his head as he continued forward. The second kunai turned into a clone throwing an overhead double fist blow, but Neji evaded this as well while striking it without looking. He was focused solely on the original. The bad for Naruto had a plan, with a backup just in case. In a plume of smoke, a flock of 15 crows appeared, all of them flying toward Neji, who halted his advance momentarily about 20 feet away from Naruto. That was his mistake. Focusing using water chakra to multiply his saliva, the blonde did the traditional hand seals for the water bullet jutsu as the crows surrounded Neji, flapping their wings furiously to distract him outside of his reach. Half of them were struck by the lightning-fast strikes he used, and firing another shaky water bullet, he watched in pleasure as it drew nearer and nearer to its target. And then he was sorely disappointed. Seeing the object rapidly coming toward him, Neji briefly gave it his attention, which was one way the first plan could have worked. Either the crows would distract Neji and the bullet would hit. Or the bullet would distract Neji and the crows would swarm him from all directions while he made kunai clones to throw above and a few to shunshin. As Neji spun his body around the water bullet, the crows instantly were upon him, but the problem was that they were blind because of the smoke from their own transformations. Neji didn't have that problem. The aggravated Hyuga was brutal and flawless in his decimation, sending flurries of strikes in all directions as he turned his body. All of the clones were annihilated and Naruto frowned as he lost sight of the Hyuga inside of the smoke cloud while he used half seals again. He was suddenly forced to leap away when Neji capitalized on the smoke cloud and threw a brace of shuriken that would have sunk into his torso had he not dodged. Now everyone was getting nervous because of what could have been a deadly blow, although the Jonin reserved judgment knowing that the shuriken weren't aimed for the head and even had they hit more than likely it would have been non-lethal. Still, it was getting intense to be a genin match. This was more like between Chunin at the Jonin exams. As Naruto rose from his roll after leaping away from the shuriken, he found Neji swiftly approaching at speeds formerly unseen during this bout and he knew it'd be over unless he did it. How he didn't want to have time do it. "You're within my field of divination," the Hyuga prodigy declared as his stance lowered and his wide eyes shined a bit. "Forbidden technique," Naruto darkly declared as a plume of smoke surrounded the two of them and then everyone present was dumbfounded by what happened next. Neji was sent rocketing away in a jet of blood that exploded from his nose and his airtime didn't end until he collided painfully with a tree trunk. Lee and Tenten's jaws hit the ground immediately and even Guy looked like he thought he was seeing something that wasn't possible. Everyone wondered what the forbidden technique could have been and since Naruto ended it resulting in another large plume of smoke and stepped out, no one would ever know. And Neji would never say a word. All of a sudden, as Ino ran over to congratulate him, the mini-me bowl-cut spandex shinobi approached Naruto with a look of pure determination declaring, "I am Rock Lee, and because you have defeated my eternal rival Neji, I challenge you to a match as your new eternal rival." Naruto just smirked and cracked his knuckles as the boy dropped into his Goken stance, fire blazing in his round eyes. Well, I can safely say that Naruto's probably about to get his ass whooped lol. Review and thanks for reading. Exams coming soon. Within 5 chapters I'd say. It started off with cracked knuckles, but it ended with cracks in various places on Naruto's skeleton. The blonde shinobi had bruised ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a contused elbow, and even a bad case of whiplash. That was his reward for facing the beast that was called Rock Lee. Ironically, his name was Rock, and Naruto felt like he had just been stoned by the entire Lee village. Twice. And the entire fight he hadn't really gotten close at all. After Ino backed away seeing that Naruto accepted Lee's challenge and wished him luck, well, let's just say Ino may as well been Tsunade wishing the Uzumaki luck. Naruto, not knowing Lee's skill set, immediately shunshined for distance, already creating 5 shadow clones to test the spandex wearing monster. And then Lee was upon him. It didn't matter that he had doppelgangers in between him and the green beast, the shadow clones kept Lee back about as good as a sheet of paper. The ninja slammed a barrage of fists into Naruto, and he didn't know how many times he got hit at first, but he was sure it was at least 20 times. All in the face, arms, chest, and stomach. Lee was so fast and direct that Naruto didn't even know his clones in front of him had been hit before he was assaulted. To say the least, it was very humbling, and the leaf hurricane kicks Naruto was hit with were the hardest blows he had ever received in his life. But as crazy as it sounded, Naruto wanted a rematch. As his eyes cracked open to see nothing but white, Naruto automatically knew just where he was from the familiar smell of cleaning solution and death. The Konoha hospital. Rising from bed, already using a hand seals to use a body flicker, the Uzumaki was surprised to see all of Team 8, along with Tenten, Guy, and Ino. His eyes wide with surprise, he grinned to all of them while standing up and said, "Great fight, Lee, let's have a rematch after I train some more. How did you get so fast? Were you using shunshin?" Everyone was taken aback at his nonchalant attitude since they all kind of thought he would have been more hostile. The blonde was showing a lot of respect for Lee and they all saw he was trying to better himself from his serious question. Naruto looked hungry for the knowledge and the blonde seemed to eye Guy as well as Kurenai as if considering their ability. They could feel the respect flowing from him and they all were endeared to his bright attitude. "No, Naruto-san, I can't use jutsu at all and so I've dedicated myself to mastering taijutsu and showing that hard work can pay off. Guy-sensei is the best teacher in the world to me and because of him my flames of youth are scorching and only getting hotter." "That's awesome, Lee. Trust me when I say you'll show everyone how strong you are and I know for a fact you'll be great. When I'm Hokage you'll be my top jonin databao. But I have to ask, if you can't use jutsu, why don't you focus in shuriken jutsu too? If you combine that with how good you are now you'll be unstoppable." Lee looked like he had actually been significantly moved by Naruto's statement and he passionately replied with a nice guy pose. An excellent idea, Naruto. Now that I think about it, my teammate Tenten had devoted herself to shuriken jutsu and is the best I've ever seen. She can throw anything and expanding my expertise would only make me stronger. When you're Hokage, I'll defeat every missing nin single-handedly with my hands behind my back and I'll always keep you on your toes so that your flames of youth never diminish. Well, when I'm Hokage there won't even be any missing nin because I'll have already beat all of them without even leaving the village. You better stay strong enough to give a challenge or I'll assign you endless D ranks until you improve. As the two started declaring grander and grander feats that they would accomplish together, Guy actually burst out in a flood of tears that couldn't be contained within him. They all saw how serious the two genin were and somehow they knew that both of them probably would accomplish what they were saying. Naruto had basically defeated Kiba, Shino, Ino, Hinata, and Neji consecutively, although Ino and Hinata had been indirect. While Naruto knew a win was a win as far as Neji was concerned, a large part of him didn't like the fact that he won with the harem technique. It was true what Jiji said, the jutsu sexy jutsu was deadly. But Naruto wanted to be strong like Lee and be able to use jutsu instantly. Then he'd be so strong he could test himself against the old man. Tenten, cutting into the conversation, feeling compelled to get to know Naruto for some reason, asked. Say, Naruto, are you interested in shuriken jutsu? Turning to the brunette beauty with a foxy smile he said. Of course I am. I've been trying to learn to use needles for a while, but they're so damn hard to use. Are you any good with them, Tenten-chan? He got his answer when a needle suddenly appeared in her hand out of nowhere and he barely saw her hand move before it was sticking directly out of a mosquito that had just flown in the window. Naruto was completely enraptured by her skill and no one failed to see the slight blush he had when he asked her with puppy eyes. Tension, won't you please teach me, pretty please? I know. I can be a moving target for you by using my shadow clones and I can work on dodging while you teach me how to throw. How about it? Watching the bun-haired girl while he failed to see the hint of jealousy coming from every other female in the room, Naruto nearly started bouncing around in happiness when she said. Let me think about it. Yeah. This is great, it's exactly what I've been needing. Maybe you could help me pick up my weapons after we train, it's always such a hassle that I haven't been using my best techniques all the time. The Uzumaki thought Tenten had a familiar aura about her, like he already knew her, and he didn't really know why. He just knew that she was pretty cute and he found himself wondering what she looked like with her hair down. Awesome, let's get started as soon as possible if you can. Maybe we can do it around the time I meet with Kurenai-sensei and get my lesson. I can't wait. Hey Kurenai-sensei, when do you want to meet anyway? The red-eyes Jonin found herself very happy Naruto remembered her offer and she quickly told him with a beautiful smile that could kill. Well, maybe we can meet around sunset tomorrow, Naruto-kun. That is if you're ready. Are you hurting anywhere? It's only been about an hour and a half since you've fought. Rubbing the back of his head, Naruto quickly replied. Yeah, Lee got me pretty good, didn't he? I can't let my subordinates be stronger than me, so I'll just have to improve until I can match his flames and surpass him. Don't worry though, I can already feel myself healing and I'll be fine by tomorrow morning. Kurenai, smiling and ignoring Guy's endless tears, was surprised when Naruto formally bowed to Shino, Hinata, and Ino, telling them. I just wanted to say I'm sorry again for that genjutsu, guys. I still want to fight you, Shino, and I never got to see your real skill, although you did make me a bit nervous at first. Shino, straightening his posture a little, told Naruto. Think nothing of it. Why? Because it is logical to assume that I may face something similar someday. I was going to ask you if you would show me how you did it, but only if you feel like you can reveal this knowledge to me. Naruto didn't even think about it before nodding, he would need Shino strong in the future after all. In fact, he was going to try and take a vested interest in every shinobi he met since they'd all be working for him someday anyway. It was actually one of the most important things he could do if he really wanted to be leader. Yeah, I'll show you. I think it'll go well with your style, you could distract your opponent and sneak your Kakashi around to their side. It could work well with you too, Kiba. Hey Guy, can I ask you something? Well, 3 things. As Kiba looked a bit surprised that Naruto was offering to help him get stronger, Guy's tears finally lessened and he sniffles before relying in the positive. First, how long have you been training Lee? I've been fanning Lee's flame for about a year now, Naruto, why do you ask? It's just Kakashi-sensei hasn't really taught me anything other than tree walking and he only did that so we'd survive our last mission. My other questions are, what is that jutsu that Lee used, and I want to know how I can get that fast. I'll work hard, I promise, and I won't bother you. I just want some pointers so I can train myself. I'm used to looking after myself anyway since I'm an orphan. There was an uncomfortable silence in the hospital room for a few moments until Ino exclaimed. You mean you got that good by yourself? In 2 months you were the dead last and you just beat last year's Rookie of the Year without even taking a hit. Bull cut aside, what you did was so cool, Naruto-kun. Blushing and smiling, Naruto replied. Thanks Ino-chan, I've just been working hard like Lee-san. You know I can help you get better too, if you still want to train with me. Now Ino had a faint blush and seeing her chance to tease she quickly said. Geez Naruto, asking me on another date you must really have a thing for your Ino-chan. Naruto couldn't deny he was turned on by the look she gave and her tone when she spoke, and the boy was only saved when Guy spoke up. Ah, such is the youthful flame of love. About your questions Naruto, the taijutsu is called Goken, the strong fist. As far as speed, I'd just suggest you pick up some weights and train yourself to the maximum. Lee and we do hundreds of laps around the leaf in the morning as a warm-up, and then after a small snack, we get to the good stuff. Feel free to join us in the mornings if you like, and I'll try talking to Kakashi about training you more seriously. Ino got a tick mark, while Kurenai, Hinata, and Tenten glared at the girl, while Guy spoke to Naruto. As the boy promised to start joining them in their morning exercises, Kiba also voiced his desire to join and not wanting to be outdone by Naruto. Then Naruto and Guy began discussing taijutsu, with Lee and Kiba joining, and Shino even said a few things. The bug user also decided to join in Guy's morning exercises, and while Ino kind of wanted to, she just couldn't imagine hundreds of laps around the leaf. Things began winding down as they left the hospital together, Ino talking to Tenten and Hinata, and she surprisingly turned the three into a small group. It seemed Ino had the same charisma Naruto had, if a little less. Naruto chatted away with Kurenai and Lee, which made Guy happy to see his young apprentice make such a good friend. Lee almost had no friends at all, and even Neji and Tenten kept him at arm's length because of his quirks. Naruto didn't care, he just respected the boy's strength and was humble enough to ask for help and even give advice. After denying Ino, Tenten, and even a curious Shino information about his forbidden technique with a sweat drop present, Naruto invited them all to Ichiraku ramen, saying it was all in him. He was disappointed when Guy said he needed to train his team, much to Tenten's chagrin and disappointment. The bun-haired girl hadn't really gotten to talk to Naruto much, but she resolved to get to know him when they trained the next day. Kurenai also said she needed to get back to training her team, especially after seeing Guy's team in action. Naruto was a bit depressed when she told him to rest up instead of joining them because of his injuries, but he brightened up knowing he'd see her the next day. She even said she'd go to Ichiraku with him before her lesson. It just left Ino, but as if by some act of kami, one of her family members found them on the way and said her father was looking for her. Now it seemed he was on his own, after deciding to just shunshin there he arrived a few seconds later in front of the stool that all but had his name etched into it. Then Naruto-kun, is that you? How did you do that? And nice clothes. Looking into the familiar brown eyes of his older sister figure Ichiraku, Naruto gave her his biggest brightest smile and answered. Hey Ni. It's a ninja thing, but I can show you sometime if you want. And thanks, it doesn't have a lot of orange besides the flames, but I kind of like it. Now let's get down to business here. How about 10 bowls of pork and 5 bowls of miso to get me started? Couldn't help but blush a little as she went to prepare the ramen for the boy that was 4 years younger than her. When did he get so cute? Was it really just the clothes? Naruto seemed a little different somehow, like he had grown up suddenly and was more of a young adult than the boy she was used to. Maybe it was just her imagination. Still, the black shinobi outfit and the white cloak with orange flames looked good on him. Really good. And the headband to the side sort of accentuated how unorthodox he was. Naruto was Naruto. After a few minutes of preparation, brought Naruto a few bowls to find the ryo already on the table with a generous tip, and Naruto scarfing his favorite delicacy down, she went and made the rest and kept them coming. She really didn't know where he put all of the noodles, but she was always glad to see how much he lived her cooking. As Naruto began digging into his last bowls, he suddenly stopped eating when he noticed something. Something troubling. In all the years that he had come to his favorite eatery in the Leaf, he had never seen any other customers besides Iruka and Gigi. And that was only because they came here with him. A grim expression began to surface on his face, and who was watching him closer than she normally did immediately noticed and assumed the worst. Naruto, is there something wrong with the ramen? Dad's not here right now and he's getting ingredients, but I don't think anything was wrong with the meat. No, that's not it it's just I know I'm not the most liked person in the village and I've never seen anyone here besides me. I think I've been bad for your business and you're one of the most precious people in the world to me. Tucci too. You guys gave me food to eat when I couldn't go anywhere else and I've been hurting you without even knowing it. Shocked look of recognition and horror instantly answered Naruto's unspoken question and he knew he was correct in his assumption. He really should have known better. If the village hated him enough to vandalize his old apartment and deny him necessities to live, then they most certainly would take measures to put Ichiraku out of business. The only saving grace for them was probably that Naruto are so much ramen they could scrape by. Well, he'd be damned if he hurt them any longer. Naruto, don't talk like that. It's not your fault and me and Dad have always loved having you around. Her words seemed to shake Naruto blonde from his thinking, and AM was about to continue when the Uzumaki just up and vanished. And he left multiple bowls of untouched virgin ramen noodles. Now she was worried sick about him, and tears even found themselves in her eyes before she was surprised for the third time that day by her favorite customer. Or only customer. As Naruto appeared with a scroll and placed it on the counter, the ramen girl looked a bit confused until he pressed a hand to the symbol in the center and she jumped back when it seemed to explode. Then the smoke cleared and Jaws went through the floor at the pile of Ryo that seemed to have an otherworldly glow around it. Naruto, how much money is that? I didn't count it out, but it should at least be enough to let my family live it up. Don't worry, being a shinobi has its perks. I love you Nichan, and I won't hurt you anymore. That's why I'm gonna tell everyone that you guys have stopped dealing with me. Then you should get more business. Naruto, we can't take your money, and Ichiraku wouldn't be Ichiraku without our favorite blonde around. What money? All I see is a large tip for the food of the gods. Naruto declared, smiling. AM just stood and stared at the boy for a while before a large grin plastered itself on her face and she came around the counter and hugged the surprised knucklehead. As she went to kiss him on the cheek, however, he turned his head at just the right moment and their lips met instead of the intended cheek contact. It didn't last long at all, but Naruto nearly had a heart attack as he felt his insides warm up like a fire jutsu had went horribly wrong. AM looked embarrassed as well, and a blush started developing as she thought about the spark she felt that caused her heart to stutter. She had never looked at Naruto in a romantic light before, but she knew from being around him that he would be perfect for her, and they weren't even that far apart in age. Naruto was kind, ambitious, fun, cheerful, energetic, cute, and ninja, and he lived ramen even more than she did. It was with these thoughts that she captured his lips again, not really thinking about it, but just following her instinct. Maybe she wouldn't have done it if he still wore that jumpsuit that made him look like a little kid, but now he just seemed older to her. More attractive. And he would never hurt her like those jerks she met in high school. He just wasn't like that. As Naruto stood completely still while AM leaned in toward him again, he felt his slumbering member awake as if rising from hibernation, and he unconsciously found himself taking a step forward to be closer to the young woman. AM ni, he softly said as their lips met again and she grabbed the back of his head, sticking her tongue into his mouth and moaning into him. Naruto couldn't stop himself from holding her close by wrapping his arms around her, relishing the feeling of his length pressing into her, surprising her with his hardness. Things suddenly got steamy in Ichiraku as ramen bowls were shattered on the floor, Naruto and AM leaning against the counter moaning and sloppily making out. Their session was abruptly put to an end as they leapt off of each other, hearing sacks of raw ingredients being dropped when AM's father walked in the stand. The man's mind seemed to shut down as he beheld Naruto of all people, Frenching his precious daughter on the fucking counter. Suddenly the bloodline purges weren't so far away anymore as he felt a familiar sensation coursing through his veins like fire as his eyes hardened and his body tensed. Naruto, what are you doing to my daughter? The blonde never got a chance to answer before the enraged father was in front of him, and Naruto barely managed to leap away in terror before the bowl of ramen, and a considerate portion of the counter was pretty much atomized by the burst of chakra that shot from the ramen chef's hands. Flickering away, looking like the Shinigami had just busted into the room, Naruto's first thought was how he probably could never come back to his favorite place in the leaf. Dad, what are you doing? Damn it, I kissed Naruto, he didn't do anything. Look at what he did for us. AM screamed with tears forming in her eyes. And Tucci saw it. The pile of Ryo that was more than he had ever seen in one place in all his long life. Leaving Water Country hadn't been easy all those years ago, but it was something he had done when his wife had suffered death instead of him. And it was all because of him. He never asked to be born the way he was, and deep down he felt that in a way the purge may have been justified as far as his blood went. The power that came from his hands could only kill, nothing could be crafted or created from it. When his wife had died because of AM displaying their rare ability, he had massacred everyone in the proximity in order to save his daughter and to avenge her. And why did she have to die? Because he was too afraid to tell her of his trait. He had never been a ninja, but the instinct. It had always been there. But ninja were meant to kill, and all he wanted to do was create. That was why he loved making ramen so much, and that was why he sympathized with Naruto Uzumaki, even though the boy drove away all of his business. That was why he saw Naruto as the son he never had. And he had just tried to kill him with his cursed hands in his foolish bout of anger. As AM explained everything that had just transpired, Tucci knew he had just made a huge mistake. He already knew Naruto would make a great husband for his daughter, as he had known the boy for most of his harsh life. If Naruto could withstand all of the hatred the villagers gave him and still remain so strong and kind, then he definitely had the patience to deal with his daughter's quirks, which were something that seemed to be in the blood. He hadn't felt this guilty since his wife died, and staring at the Ryo while he stormed off, he prayed to Kami that he'd get the chance to apologize. Maybe he could see the Hokage later, he was close to Naruto after all. As Naruto appeared in his apartment suddenly, all the clones that were reading through the bingo books like fiends suddenly looked up to him with peculiar expressions before dispelling. Coughing as the smoke entered his lungs, Naruto made a mental note to eliminate the smoke from the technique as well as his transformation. While it had its uses, the noise and smoke could be a hindrance, like his fight Neji when he lost sight of the Hyuga. The memories rushing back to him, Naruto's eyes widened as he fit the information he had been waiting for his entire life. And he was angry. Flickering away once again, a few moments later he reappeared in front of the Hokage's desk, already slamming his fists down, as Anbu surrounded him with swords drawn the same instant. "Amajiji, why didn't you tell me about her?" Naruto screamed at the top of his lungs with a dangerous glint in his eyes. The Hokage, for all his prowess, was actually a bit shaken by the raw emotion Naruto displayed, his blue eyes watery with confusion and looking betrayed. "Who, Naruto?" he asked, giving the Anbu a signal to leave the office and secure the perimeter, and they left immediately without question. "My mom, Kushina Uzumaki." The Hokage seemed to age about 20 years within a single second, and the man sighed deeply before explaining himself. "It's not that I didn't want to, or I wasn't going to, Naruto. Your mother was both the heir to Whirlpool and a renowned kunoichi who had many enemies during the war. The fact that she was in Uzumaki skilled in Fuinjutsu made her a top target to Kumo and Iwa, since they banded together to destroy the Uzumaki clan in a time of peace. If they ever found out you were her son, then they'd surely send assassins for your head, or they'd try and kidnap you to use you to revive the Uzumaki in their villages. So what? You could have at least told me about her and what she was like. You could have taken me in and trained me in sealing, instead of leaving me to think I was just some unwanted orphan with no family. I had to find out about her from an old bingo book I got from a ninja that tried to kill me." Sarutobi flinched badly from the boy's cutting words, knowing full well that he should have done those very things. There was nearly nothing he could do to make it up to his surrogate grandson, and as he seemed to age even more, he sadly told Naruto. "I can't tell you how sorry I really am, Naruto. This old man has made many mistakes, and you're right, I didn't train you because of my duty as Hokage, and I'm always so busy doing this cursed paperwork I never was there for you like I should have been, please forgive me." Naruto seemed to calm down a bit at Hirazen's disheveled appearance and somber apology, and with a look of confusion he bitterly asked. "Paperwork? I could take care of this paperwork without even having to touch it with my own hands. Don't tell me you don't know how." Instantly the Hokage leapt across the desk with a look of desperation as he grabbed Naruto's shoulders, taking in his changed appearance, and instantly being reminded of how Minato always was able to defeat the bane of his existence. Apparently Naruto knew the secret as well, and using his version of the puppy eye, no jutsu, the Hokage begged him. "You know how to kill these papers. It'll do anything, just please tell me how." Taken aback by the abrupt display of insanity, Naruto quickly turned this to his advantage with a peculiar look and replied. "Anything you say. Anything, just tell me and it's done." The next day, walking to meet Kurenai, Naruto was ecstatic about the lesson he'd be receiving, and his clones were at his home studying everything he got in exchange for the assassination of the Hokage's greatest enemy. Not only did he find out who his father was, but he also learned a ton about his parents from Jiji, who he decided to forgive. Naruto now had a book on sealing by his father, his jutsu scrolls, his mother's summoning contract, the letter that she left him before she died, and the old man had even promised to help train him after he told him about how the other Hokage fought. He also was told everything about the other Jinchuriki the Hokage knew from his spies, Yagura included. Naruto would even be allowed to learn one of the Tobirama's own S-rank water jutsu he left behind, the explosive bite of the water dragon. Now all he had to do was train. As the last of the Uzumaki slowly made his way to meet up with his Jonin crush Kurenai Yuhi, he couldn't help but notice the different responses he was receiving from the usually apathetic villagers. He had just came from his first training session with his fellow Genin Kunoichi Tenten Higurashi, or Tenshin as he called her. The few hours that they trained were very enlightening to Naruto, as he learned that the girl truly was the best of the best in the art of shuriken jutsu. And learn he did. Tenten's weapons fetish transcended the bounds of sanity, as once she was able to finally cut loose, Naruto had never seen his shadow clone so terrified in all his occasions of using them. Even Zabuza's killing intent failed to compare with the madness she unleashed from her sealing scrolls, and her laughter while slinging blade after blade would permanently be etched into his memory. Other than that, she was pleasant to be around. He had managed to correct his throwing form a little, although he was far from even being able to throw a single senbon needle in combat. Tenten had actually suggested he give up trying to master senbon and instead focus on the much easier usage of shuriken. After hearing her reasoning, he decided to listen and learn to throw shuriken better first, but he damned sure wasn't going to give up on throwing needles. It was something to remember Haku with, and the fact that it was more difficult than both using shuriken and kunai added an alluring challenge that he couldn't ignore. Besides, if he could aim a tiny needle precisely, then his aim with deadlier weapons would also be spot on. While they mostly trained, Naruto did get to know her a little, and he found that she did indeed have a lot in common with him. Particularly her love and devotion to the ninja arts and her strong interest in sealing jutsu. They'd be meeting again tomorrow at the same time, and he definitely was happy to have the opportunity to bond with her some more. Earlier that morning the old man had asked him a lot of questions concerning his skill and goals, and afterward the Hokage gave suggestions while creating a new training regimen for Naruto. Tomorrow morning Jiji would be applying a resistance seal to increase Naruto's speed, and the old man certainly had some interesting techniques that he would be taught. Mainly the chakra shield technique, a skill that utilized the principle of tree walking for defensive purposes. The blonde thought he understood the mechanics behind it, since he could vividly remember failed tree walking attempts that ended up propelling him away, instead of making him stick with chakra control. It was basically the opposite of that, and it would be projected around the entire body instead of just the feet. The Hokage also would be assisting Naruto in creating a kinjutsu style for the Kubikirabacho, and he would even be helping Naruto learn to synchronize with his new summons animals, the hyenas. The Uzumaki still hadn't summoned yet because he had been pretty low on chakra because of using so many clones to train all the time, and after trying once the previous day he passed out from exhaustion. It was amazing how things had turned around for him so quickly, and gauging by the looks he receiving, even the villagers were seeing him in a new light. Especially the women. If Naruto had to guess, he'd probably say it was because of his new look, which was strikingly similar to the fourth Hokage, his father Minato Namikaze. He had mixed feelings about the man that had sealed a demon into his own son to protect the Leaf Village, but even still he was happy he at least knew who his dad was. And he was the man he had looked up to the most while he was in the academy. The villagers seemed to see the close resemblance, and while a few were too shocked to even speak, a few of the more vocal ones had seemed to think the demon was invoking his image, as they so eloquently put it. But the ladies, well, even Naruto had begun noticing the looks he was given were those of lust. And as stated before, he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he was getting better. Regardless of all the attention he seemed to now effortlessly be getting, his mind was on his goal. Yagura. After being shown the Three Tails Jinchurika's picture, Naruto couldn't have been more surprised at how young the Mizukage was, and learned that he was both the youngest Kage in history and the only Jinchuriki Kage in history. And so the one-sided grudge had deepened into something that couldn't be described with mere words. Only bloodshed would suffice. Yagura had spat on everything that Naruto had dreamed of, and therefore had offended Naruto more so than even Neji could ever hope to. That was what drove him to get stronger now, and so even while he himself slept, he had clones out and about training or studying. Finally arriving at training ground right as the evening sun descended behind a beautiful orange-tinted cluster of clouds, Naruto briefly wondered if Shikamaru was watching the cloud formation as his instructor in acrobatics sauntered to where H was waiting. He only barely restrained the gasp as he took in her appearance, the dimming light seemingly to glow around her as if it was a jinjutsu. There was no way she could have been that gorgeous naturally, and yet there she was in front of him. A humongous blush appearing as Kurenai made herself known, Naruto tried and failed to suppress it and just opted to greet her with his biggest foxy smile. "Hey Kurenai-sensei, it's good to see you didn't forget about me. It's beautiful out, isn't it? I mean, look at all that orange." Kurenai couldn't help but blush, catching what Naruto was about to say before he caught himself and changed the subject, and she examined the sunset as he was doing, since he seemed to be trying to avoid staring at her. She wouldn't have minded if he did stare, no, not at all. "Hey Naruto-kun, it's good to see you too, and how could I forget about my favorite genin in the leaf? I swear when you pranked the entire Hyuga clan and scattered their underwear around the village, I never laughed so hard in my life." Recalling that legendary incident made the blonde chuckle in nostalgia, and after the two made small talk about a few more of his infamous pranks, he decided to tell her. "Say sensei, I know I said I'd treat you to Ichiraku ramen, but I was thinking we could go somewhere else instead. Maybe you know a good place." She only barely caught the tinge of sadness that he let slip as he mentioned Ichiraku's, but since she was aware of the treatment he received around the leaf, she decided not to push. Besides, she had the perfect tea spot for them to go to after her lesson, and she was sure he would enjoy himself. "Actually, I know a perfect place for us to relax at, Naruto-kun. Now are you ready for our first lesson?" Seeing him nod, she inwardly smirked and started things off by telling him stretch, being sure to give him a thorough demonstration by arching her body as if about to flip backward on both hands. While Naruto vehemently opposed perverts and unusual denied any thoughts from festering, the sight of Kurenai bent over backward was enough to nearly make his nose gush his precious red life fluid. The tent made itself present in his pants almost instantly, and now he found himself in a debacle. If he bent over backward as well, it'd be the most conspicuous embarrassing thing ever, as he was sure that the Jonin would take notice. It was with these thoughts that he quickly excused himself, saying that nature called, and the only thing he could do was envision a steamy bowl of ramen while he stood behind a tree to distract himself while he calmed down. Little did he know that Kurenai already knew what she had done to him, and the kunoichi was smirking in triumph at the reaction she got from him. Over the course of an hour or so Naruto seemed to need to relieve himself several more times after the first, but he did manage to improve his movement in that short time. Kurenai had fixed his form so that he now did the basic backflip on his hands and front flips in which his hands didn't touch the ground. As far as his side movement he just did simple cartwheels, and he also spun around which granted him swifter agility. Spin like Haku or Tobirama's side movement in Ultimate Ninja Storm. After Kurenai was satisfied with his progress and made sure his form didn't slip back into the sloppy technique that it was previously, the two ninja made their way to a restaurant that Kurenai was familiar with. Naruto admittedly was extremely nervous, and it actually wasn't for the reason one might assume when you're going out with the Ice Queen of Konoha. His apprehension stemmed from his terrible treatment and he didn't know if the restaurant would even let him in at all. With all the glare he was getting he wondered why Kurenai would even risk being seen with him. He didn't know for sure, but he thought she was old enough to know about the Kyuubi, and even if she didn't she was observant enough to notice his harsh treatment. She didn't seem to care however, and as they made small talk during the brisk walk, it was amazingly easy to keep conversation with her. They mostly talked about Jinjutsu, and Naruto also talked a lot about why he wanted to be Hokage. Why he would be Hokage. She seemed to be pleased and impressed with his changed reason for desiring the esteemed position, since she told him that protecting the village was a fine reason that spoke of how noble he was. She even said she believed he could do it, which was honestly a new experience for the Uzumaki. The only others that believed in him like that were Lee, Am, and Tucci, and maybe the old man. Yuju did always say Naruto was like the will of fire incarnate, and he also said the most important thing the Hokage needed was the will of fire. As the Leaf Ninja reached their destination, Kurenai paused outside of the humble establishment with a smile that spoke of good memories and turned to Naruto telling him. Well, this is it. It's just a little hole in the wall, but they have the best sake in the village to me, and I've tried pretty much everyone's. I'm sure you like it here, Naruto-kun. Nani, sake, aren't I too young to drink that stuff? Well, you did say you're almost 16, which is drinking age. Besides, we're ninja. If you can kill I think you should be able to enjoy a little buzz, right? Looking into the warm eyes of his crush as she smiled gently at him, Naruto just nodded and gave her a smile of his own as they entered the place called the Drunken Shadow. It was a dimly lit place that seemed to have a theme of warm colors that were illuminated by firelight. There were several booths that went along the back of the eatery for privacy, and there was a long bar in which several shinobi were sweated enjoying their downtime. The bartender didn't even look up from cleaning his saucers as Naruto and Kurenai walked to an empty booth silently, and quickly taking his seat and settling into the corner of the booth, Naruto made sure he couldn't be seen by the tender. He just wanted to blend in and relax for once, and thankfully nobody seemed to distinguish him, most likely because of his changed appearance. He did look very different than when he dressed in that horrendous tracksuit after all. Wait here and I'll be right back, Naruto-kun. Now lem see what to get. As Kurenai left talking to herself considering what kind of liquor she'd get them, Naruto couldn't help but watch her switch and admired her beautiful legs that could have belonged to a goddess. It didn't take her long at all to score some of her favorites, and since it was Naruto's first time she made sure to get a few different varieties that she had loved from her prior experience in wine tasting. Here, try this, Naruto-kun, it's honey sake and one of my favorites. It's actually a hobby of mine, tasting wine that is. Nothing like a bottle of hot sake to loosen you up and get rid of stress. Drink up K, but not too fast. Pace yourself. Okay sensei, do you have any other hobbies? Naruto asked as she poured him a saucer and then pouring herself one as well. Enough with the sensei talk, Naruto-kun, just call me Kurenai, you hear? And besides trying new wines I like to draw and listen to music. What about you? Well, I love gardening and pranking of course, but now that I'm a shinobi I kind of left pranking behind. It'd still be funny to get the Anbu though. I was thinking of dyeing their outfits hot pink and sprinkling glitter on them, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, haha. So you like music, can you sing? And I'd like to see one of your drawings sometime. After a while of chatting and drinking, Naruto began feeling the buzz in he acquired a taste for the sake. Especially the honey sake. He ended up giving Kurenai a healthy amount of ryo to buy more of it, and the lightheadedness of being inebriated gave him a happiness and warmth that was only strengthened by being with Kurenai and getting to know her better. But all good things must come to an end. Oh, you wanna touch, huh? Well, how about I touch you instead, bastard? Suddenly a man of at least 200 pounds was tossed across the drunken shadow like a rag doll, and what was truly ponderous was the fact that no one seemed to give a shit. It was like it was a normal occurrence, and trying to see what the commotion was all about, Naruto examined the woman closer while expecting her to be ejected for her disturbance. She had purple hair and a spiky ponytail, a tan trench coat, and she wore a mesh bodysuit with an orange miniskirt that didn't hide any of her impressive bust. As far as the restaurant went, Naruto was immediately reminded of that bar scene in Star Wars when Obi-Wan killed that alien, and everyone stared for a second, then just turned back around like nothing happened. Nobody even tried to help the poor bastard she demolished to the hospital, and Naruto could have sworn he saw a bone broken under the man's skin due to the unnatural angle his arm was bent in. All of this happened within a few seconds, and Kurenai had nearly made it back to the booth before the woman seemed to recognize her with a large smile. Kurenai, for all her ability as an elite jonin, looked absolutely horrified for some reason. "Hey Nai-chan wasapwicha." Inwardly cursing her luck since Anko saw her despite her trying to use the booth as cover, Kurenai greeted her best friend and fellow kunoichi Anko Mitarashi, who somehow had pulled a stick of dango out of thin air and ate it in one nutritious even chewing. Then to Naruto's horror, along with several other males in the vicinity, she chucked the skewer, sinking it into the unconscious man's groin without even looking. Hearing the pained moan, Naruto winced, as did several others, and Kurenai, seemingly unaffected, just sighed and closed her eyes incredulously at her friend's behavior. Then Anko, who took a bottle of Naruto's wine, drank straight from the bottle before noticing him and asked. "Hey wasp with blondie, I thought you were dating Asuma. Guess he didn't have enough balls huh, so you went and got a boy him." Kurenai just rubbed her temple as she tried and failed to calm herself down, and Naruto, being shocked beyond belief at this woman's brazen personality, exclaimed. "Hey, don't talk to Kurenai-sensei like that, you crazy lady. And that's my sake, damn it." Smirking and taking another exaggerated chug, Anko looked to Naruto and told him. "And you obviously got enough to spread around, shorty, and besides I'm thirsty after a hard day's torture." Now Naruto was getting pissed. Nobody insulted his height like that, and who did she think she was, taking his drink that he just bought? "Hand over the bottle and we won't have a problem, and I'm not short, I'm 5'6", damn it. Who do you think you are, coming here and taking my stuff and talking shit, you psycho?" Now the woman was perched on the tabletop exactly like Naruto had done so long ago when he got in Sasuke's face when he was in the academy, and little did he know the result would be exactly the same as before. "I'm Anko fucking Mitarashi Konoha's sexy deadly jonin kunoichi assassin extraordinaire Gaki. Who the hell are you?" Now several other customers in the restaurant began inching away from what was sure to be a terrible murder scene as Naruto stood up face to face with Anko, and with a glare of enormous magnitude he declared. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage, and you better believe you'll be doing nothing but D ranks when I'm your boss, you damned." As a dish broke in the booth behind Naruto, the drunk blonde stumbled forward in surprise, and suddenly he tasted dango and liquor as his and Anko's lips smashed together. Now people started to rush out the establishment like a bomb threat had been called in by Deidara himself, and time seemed to stop as the two just kept still with their lips locked for what may have been years. And then Anko moaned. "Anko?" As the assassin turned her head to Kurenai, she saw the look in her eyes she had only seen once before in life. The look she had seen right before the genjutsu that had scarred her mind for months. The genjutsu that still sometimes haunted her dreams to this very day. Leaping away as Kurenai finished her lightning-fast hand seals, it was instead Naruto that took the brunt of the deadly attack. "My eyes." Blood flowed from his eyeballs like Itachi using Mangekyo as he beheld the image of a naked guy making out with the wrinkly form of the Hokage. Naruto slumped to the ground and appeared to killed in action. If only things would have been that easy. Haha, love this chappy. Next chapter, more trainings, fights, humor, and all the good stuff. The Uzumaki clan were once a clan renowned not only for their fuinjutsu prowess, kinjutsu, and special chakra, but also for their indomitable will and spiritual fortitude that had no equal. Perhaps this was why Naruto never gave in to the hatred during his rough life of solitude and sadness, and this also may have been the reason that the blonde didn't commit a suicidal act because of his most recent traumatic event. Or maybe his mind just erased the memory of that horrid genjutsu in a desperate bid for self-preservation. Regardless, the young Uzumaki heir was most fortunate. Most fortunate indeed. This fortune was manifested when the Hokage finally arrived and he didn't automatically vomit his breakfast of instant ramen, bacon, and eggs, or his trademark breakfast ramen. "Hey Gigi, good morning. It's about time you showed ya old coot, now let's get to summoning." Naruto had awoken early in the morning, barely remembering the day before, although he did recall his date with Kurenai and kissing some crazy Anko chick accidentally. He also still retained his acrobatic lesson, thankfully, since that was the main reason he met Kurenai in the first place. He didn't know why, but he had the strangest dream of seeing the Hokage and guy making out, but with the way he obliterated this vision, at least he came out relatively unscathed. His eyes hurt for some reason though, and he wondered how he made it home after getting drunk. He didn't remember parting ways with his crush, but he figured she must have sunshined him home or something. "Good morning, Naruto. Yes, let's begin. I have some arrangements that need to be taken care of later, so I'll be leaving you to your own devices after a while." What Naruto didn't know was that those arrangements involved peeping like a certain Sannin spy master, but he didn't know couldn't hurt him. At least not yet. "Do you remember the 5 hand seals for the summoning?" Already on the second hand seal as the Hokage asked the question, Naruto finished the short sequence a bit slowly but correctly nonetheless. Slamming his hand to the ground and watching a sealing array manifest immediately, he focused on channeling an adequate amount of chakra and waited expectantly. Was a large plume of smoke exploded nearby. When the smoke cleared, it was obvious he was ecstatic at the results. There was a large black and grey four-legged creature that he recognized as a hyena, although he thought it looked a bit like a wolf as well. The most distinguished features was the summon's red eyes and impressive stature, since it stood about the size of a pony, but a little smaller Matina Pokemon. As his summons turned and looked at him with an examining eye, Naruto was surprised when he heard a considerably feminine voice that seemed to come from nowhere as its red eyes glowed a little. "I am Mai of the Hyena clan, who are you human and why am I here?" The blonde's eyes widened a bit, but at least the Hokage had previously explained that most summons could communicate in human language, and deciding to try and make the best first impression possible, Naruto declared with a smile. "I'm Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki and your new summoner. It's nice to meet Mai-chan, and I wanted to learn how to work together with you. Naruto Uzumaki, my family hasn't been summoned by an Uzumaki for many years, and my mother has said that her partner was Kushina Uzumaki. Do you know of her?" Naruto, getting a bit depressed, responded almost immediately, informing her. "Yeah, she was my mom, but she died when I was born. I'm sorry to hear that, it is most unfortunate. My mother held her in high esteem and she brought my clan much glory. Her prowess was legendary, and as her son I assume that you are also capable as well. I will assist you in any way I can, but if you don't mind, could you give me some barbecued meat when you call upon me? I've been curious about it ever since I was just young and my mother spoke so fondly of it." "Sure thing, Mai-chan, I'll get you some right now, in fact." Naruto beamed, creating a shadow clone with a half seal. As the clone flickered away after Naruto gave it some ryo, Naruto, turning to the Hokage, asked him. "Alright, so what now, Jiji, you gonna summon a monkey or something, right?" "Correct, Naruto, however why don't you ask Mai-san what abilities she has first? That way we'll have a place to start in understanding how you can work in tandem with her." Nodding his head in agreement, Naruto voiced his question, not knowing what to expect at all. Mai then answered. "My expertise lies in the art of illusions and tracking, along with crushing bone without breaking the skin with my teeth. The way of the crushing bite was passed down to me by my mother, and I have taken it further by incorporating illusions to gain advantages. Would you like a demonstration, Naruto-sama?" Naruto, practically bouncing around in excitement, nodded his head vigorously, giving her the go-ahead, and he was amazed at what was shown to him. Mai, crouching down slightly, took off at high chunin speeds, disappearing for a moment and reappearing in front of a training post with arm and leg extensions jutting out from its sides. Then she dashed to the side while a copy of her circled the other side. Then it was revealed that what Naruto thought was the real Mai was an illusion, and the other one bit cleanly through an arm with ease, tossing the wood away. Then she turns to Naruto and starting to laugh menacingly, and the sound seemed to echo as the boy started hearing footsteps, as if enemies were approaching from all sides. Then she faded out of existence again, although the Hokage seemed to sense her presence as she reappeared with a roar that shook Naruto a bit and made him cover his ears from the sound. Then he was truly shocked when she was just in front of him, licking his face in a display of friendship. Wow. If he had been an enemy, he would have had his skull crushed. "Whoa, Mai-chan, you're the coolest ever. With you at my side I'll be Hokage in no time, Dadabayo." "I agree that was impressive, Naruto. From what you've told me, you have learned the hidden mist jutsu, and so I believe that Mai-san can be of great assistance with her tracking from a concealed position. Please perform the technique so that I can ascertain how effective it can be. I'll create a clone for her to target." And so for the next few hours Naruto learned everything he could about his new summon's abilities and more about the other summons he could call upon. It seemed that Mei's older sibling was the boss, but Naruto couldn't summon her until he got stronger. Much stronger. After the Hokage applied the resistance seal and set it to the first level, the aged leader left the blonde to his own devices as he said he would. Naruto needed to get used to the seal anyway, and as the first level was akin to wading through water, he moved at a much slower pace. The second level would be more like a thick syrup or molasses, the third mud, the fourth like damp sand, and the fifth and final level like concrete. The last level would actually require constant usage of chakra in order to move at all, which would increase the reserves and make body-enhancing techniques like Shunshin much more effective. After Jiji flickered away from the private training ground that they met at to handle his business, Naruto, seeing that it just turned noon, decided to see if Ino was in the flower shop. He enjoyed hanging out with her, and he felt they actually had a ton in common, especially their personalities and love of plant life. He just wished she wouldn't mess with him so much with her flirting, but it was definitely better than hearing about Sasuke team. After a long and tiring walk to see his friend, Naruto entered Yamanaka flower shop and immediately smiled seeing that she was indeed behind the counter fiddling with her hair. He couldn't help but gasp because of what he saw. In all his years as an academy student and Ino's classmate, he had never once seen the blonde kunoichi with her hair down. She was absolutely gorgeous. Hearing the door jingle as Naruto entered and stared at her with a blush momentarily, Ino seemed to move in a blur of speed as her hair was once again in its usual style, to the disappointment of Naruto. "Hey Naruto, what's going on? And what's with the frown, you're usually all smiley and crap, it's weird," she asked as if just waking up. She had been bored out of her mind all day and only a few customers had came during those precious few hours of her life. "Hey Ino, just dropping by and it's just, well, I was wondering, why do you put your hair in a ponytail all the time?" Her eyes widened in surprise before she quickly answered matter-of-factly. "Well, I heard Sasuke likes long hair, but he would want a more serious kunoichi instead, someone like forehead fat. Why do you wanna know?" Frowning at the mention of Sasuke, Naruto then blushed when he answered without thinking about it. "You look even more pretty with your hair down. I thought you were a tenshi when I first saw you." Ino, turning a deep crimson, found herself speechless at Naruto's compliments before he fully registered what he told her and blushed as well. The Yamanaka heiress couldn't even tease him as she turned away from him a bit and asked. "So do you need any more bamboo seeds or anything? I know you've bought a ton of them, but if you need more it may take a few days for us to get some." Thankful that she changed the subject, Naruto replied happily. Not yet, but I'll still buy some whenever you get more. In fact, I'll buy all of them, so get as much as you possibly can. Oh yeah, and can you separate the clustering kind from the ones that spread? I'll personally give you a huge tip if you do." "Sure thing, but how do you have so much money? I know for a fact that D ranks don't pay a lot, which is partly why I work here part-time." "Now spill?" she asked, crossing her arms trying to glare at him. Rubbing the back of his head, looking a bit sheepish, Naruto cryptically answered. "That Ino-chan is top secret, but I will say that it was sort of an inheritance. But that's all you're getting out of me." Huffing and mumbling something about stupid blondes, the conversation turned to the subject of D-ranked missions that were the name of every genin's existence. Mainly the tour retrieval that often ended with multiple shallow wounds and bruised pride, along with a passionate hatred for everything feline. After about an hour, a customer entered and Naruto left, not wanting to drive away their business, much to Ino's confusion and chagrin. Naruto was growing on her and actually becoming one of her closer friends, especially considering no one else really bothered to just visit her at all. Even her childhood friends and teammates usually just kept to themselves, but at least she had made friends out of Tenten and Hinata. If only she could win Sasuke's heart now, and thinking about Naruto, she wondered if he could help her. A few hours later, "Pay attention. Hey Naruto-kun, you ready to start? I've been dying to try this new technique I just mastered, and I'll need a ton of clones if you can manage it." After leaving Yamanaka flower shop, Naruto had decided to do a few laps around the leaf to get used to his resistant seal, and found it exceedingly hard. Normally he would have at least done 30 or 40 laps, but he only managed 5, and those drained him way more than 40 would have. Wondering what Tenten's new technique could be, he used a half-ram seal and created 34 clones, still a bit fatigued from earlier. Within 5 minutes he was amazed beyond what should have been possible. "No way, how did you move all those weapons without even touching them?" "Tension, that was awesome, Dadabeo." The bun-haired girl blushed at the praise with a proud look before she answered. Now I can't go around giving away all my secrets now, can I, Naruto-kun? But thanks for that, I appreciate it, but you'll just have to live with knowing I'm so much more awesome than you are." Crying endless and I'm tears, Naruto whined. "Oh, you're so mean, Tension. I'd tell you if you had asked me." Tenten actually was but moved by his words that sounded honest, but she held her position firmly and pulling out a kunai she said. "If you've got the energy to cry, then you've got the energy to dodge, Naruto-kun. I'll count to 10. This snapped the blonde out of his funk immediately, a look of horror replacing his teary eyes as he dashed off, causing Tenten to chuckle. He really was cute to her, and for some reason she couldn't stop thinking about if he'd really have taught her how to use chakra strings had things been reversed. 3 days later, "You're late." Naruto and Sakura screamed in unison at their Jonin-sensei Kakashi's tardiness. The man was so late that he might as well have just not come at all, and his dumbest explanation didn't make anything better. "Sorry, it's just that on my way here I helped this little old granny across the street when she asked me to, but it turns out she was actually a missing nin with a vendetta against me." Even Sakura was speechless at the excuse, and words couldn't be formed by anyone present to press the issue, so Kakashi just told them to run some laps around the training ground. The last few days had been a bit enlightening to Naruto, especially since he had decided to don his old orange jumpsuit again in order to throw off everyone for a while. Especially Sasuke. While he didn't actually wear it but instead used a transformation jutsu, it was still as hideous as ever. His new clothing had definitely grown on him during the past week, but his lessons with the old man had led him to use his head more. Much more. He realized that if Sasuke started taking him even more serious, then he'd most likely use the Sharingan to copy his moves, and that was something he wanted to avoid at all costs. While he knew the sleeves of his cloak would probably conceal his hand seals, he still didn't want to risk it. And even his cloak couldn't prevent his Taijutsu from being stolen. It was troubling to him. The other thing he realized was his diminishing liking of Sakura, as he had instead transferred his affection to Kurenai and surprisingly Ino. He didn't really know how to go about with trying to express this to them, but he had resolved himself to find out. While he had considered asking Gigi, when he considered the man's obvious perversion, he decided against it after a while. The old man was the smartest person he knew, but that didn't mean he was good with the ladies. And so here he was, standing in front of a bored Kakashi who was reading his favorite literature as he usually did. His team has already started running, and so this was the chance he needed. It wasn't like Kakashi-sensei was a pervert, right? Why aren't you running with Sasuke and Sakura? Naruto, can I help you with something? Kakashi asked in a monotonous voice without even looking at Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, can I ask you a question? If it's about a new jutsu again, then the answer is the same as before. He lazily replied. Naruto, not really caring so much about Kakashi teaching him, still graced a little, but schooled himself. It wasn't like Kakashi was as strong as Gigi was anyway. What could he teach that the old man couldn't? Well, it's actually about girls. Now Kakashi finally looked up from his orange book, his eye a bit wider than usual, signifying his surprise as he asked. What about them? Well, you see, there's these 3 girls that I like and I think that they might actually accept me for me, you know, and then well there's this other girl and I think she really likes me, but I don't really know what to do about it. What would you do if a girl was perverted for you? Kakashi-sensei, Naruto explained seriously and paying rapt attention, waiting for his teacher's response. The Uzumaki was a bit surprised and confused at the girlish giggles Kakashi released at his last question, and even more so when after a moment of silence, the Jonin reached into a pouch on his hip and pulled an orange book like the one he was holding. Usually I'd never do this, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't help my cute little student with something like this. This book will teach you everything you need to know, Naruto, just read from the first page and lose yourself in the story. Trust me, don't skip or peek to the ending, and you'll learn everything you'll ever need to know about women. Just be sure to bring it back when you're finished, alright? The Jonin was taken aback when Naruto quickly hugged him with a thanks and an appreciative smile, before dashing off a bit slower than usual to join his teammates. The silver-haired copy nin could only think one thing. Maybe I should do a little research like Jiraiya-sama and see if I can help with the next issue. I could probably even get an early release. Then the Jonin started giggling hysterically, thinking about early release. Later that night, what is this? Naruto screamed before rocketing out of his house, crashing through the living room screen door. Kakashi was the worst pervert of them all if he read this all day. He had to admit though, the plot was actually pretty good, but he didn't expect anything more than kissing and stuff. But this was Icha the Freak Attack Gold Deluxe Edition with bonus content. After a month of deathly silence that seemed to permeate within the Hidden Leaf village, ask any one of the many citizens and they'd all tell you they were scared shitless. Why? Because of the drawn-out absence of one Uzumaki. Naruto, the blonde-haired prankster that was a known menace to society, had been avoiding any unnecessary contact with human life during these past few weeks, to the point where he didn't even train with Tenten or visit Ino at all. He still jogged in the mornings to condition himself, but it was always alone. And to him it was for a very good reason. Well, maybe he had been taking it overboard, at least that's what he occasionally mused to himself. But he just couldn't find it in himself to face anyone while he sorted through his thoughts about what he now knew. He was far too embarrassed. Sure, being left alone all your life and ostracized to the point of not really knowing what sex was definitely not a good thing, but with what he learned it was like his entire world had turned upside down. He was a devout anti-pervert, notwithstanding his sexy jutsu and harem technique creations, and even when he had researched in order to make them more effective, it hadn't been out of lust or anything like it. He had just remembered an occasion in which some guy literally was launched away because of a prank he pulled on the hot springs. During the past month, besides training, he had been painfully slowly reading through Icha the Freak Attack, taking in the story in butte-sized pieces so as not to die from blood loss and shame. The novel had been surprisingly enrapturing, the main character being a self-taught warrior that tried to win the heart of an alcoholic woman that he had always loved. It started off so innocent, with him trying to do everything possible to capture her attention, just like he did for Sakura before. Eventually, however, he found that nothing he did ever worked, but in trying to impress that woman, he actually impressed many other women who all tried to become his lovers. In the end he couldn't choose, but the woman that he loved ended up in danger, and after he saved her, she fell madly in love with him. It was just all the smut in between and the pictures that left nothing to the imagination. He honestly didn't know what to do besides thank Kakashi-sensei for actually helping, as he actually did learn a lot and not just sexual positions and dirty talk. Whoever wrote the book must have been a very smooth talker, as many of the conversations within held tidbits of charismatic personality in the way of seduction that Naruto wouldn't have ever thought possible. It was like if you wanted to pursue someone, then just do it. And if someone was interested in you, give them a chance. Life is short, and so even if a bond was short-lived, if it ended on positive terms, then it was well worth it. Drink your sake, travel the world, meet new people, enjoy yourself. Uzumaki found himself wanting to read more of the critically acclaimed series, and so after buying Kakashi a new copy because of the bloodstains, Naruto ended up buying an entire box set. He didn't necessarily like all of the sexual scenes in the book, as his honest opinion of anal sex was definitely negative. But he could see the value in learning how people interacted through its enthralling storyline, and after an entire month of near seclusion, he felt he was ready to face anything, from relationships to battles of fists, blades, and justice. The month of being tutored by Gigi had been very productive, as the old man seemed to have an answer for all of Naruto's questions and ideas that he never would have thought about. A few of his accomplishments included silent smokeless clones and transformations, sealess shunshuns, better cooperation with his hyena summons, and being on the second level of his resistant seal, which was like having to constantly walk through thick syrup. He even had been able to use the Kubikirabacho a little now, as the Hokage helped him develop a style based upon his own staff style. Of course it was innately different, but like the old man said, he needed to use the sword's own momentum to carry it along, but this could leave openings if he spun his body too much. As a result, he had bought a weight bench and started pumping iron, as well as eating healthy while taking vitamin and protein supplements. This caused him to gain about 15 pounds of solid muscle on his upper body, and his ribsage had spread, although Gigi did recommend that he use less weight with more reps now to stay slimmer. His method would focus on both speed and strength, with immense speed and momentum from technique to increase power. He had even grown an inch, putting him at 5'7", and his hair had grown a little because of his improved intake of vital nutrients. He had never felt better, and with a new take on life and unending energy due to his diet, he was ready for anything. If he already was hyperactive while only eating ramen, then now he was like a juiced-up junkie. As things winded down in Training Ground 7, the fact that Sasuke was getting ninjutsu training nearby didn't faze him whatsoever. Good for him, and Naruto, after learning about the Uchiha massacre, had stopped himself several times from voicing his support. It wasn't really his business, but at least he knew why the team was actually a team. His own brother had killed his entire family in front of him. That was no fucking joke. Not ever having a family, Naruto couldn't really fully comprehend what it must have been like, but he definitely knew the sting of being an orphan. In a way they were just alike, the last of their clans with a mission to kill a powerful opponent that offended them in some way. Sasuke's situation was just a lot more personal, and Naruto found himself wishing the bastard luck sometimes. Life was too short to spend it hating the prick after all, although he never really got along with him much. But lately, things had gotten better since Sasuke started getting trained by Kakashi, and the Uchiha never even challenged Naruto because of it. He was too busy focusing on learning what he was shown and practicing with his Sharingan, and his latest assignment certainly made Naruto weary. Not of his skill, but because he'd be keeping his Sharingan activated for weeks on end without shutting it off, essentially making him able to remember more and also gain better reflexes while increasing his reserves. Naruto didn't care much, but Sasuke had finally caught on to his constant transformation that increased his own chakra control, even if unconsciously. And so his disguise was now pretty pointless, which was why as Kakashi and Sasuke finished their spar, Naruto ended his sequence of sit-ups while hanging from a tree and dropped to the ground in a crouch, letting the transformation drop. Sakura, who was nearby, eventually took notice and was instantly curious. "Naruto, what's with the henge? If you're trying to change your look thinking I'll date you, then you're more of a baka than I thought." Naruto didn't even acknowledge her and instead stared into the trees surrounding them, hearing a few people approaching at a slow pace. One of the benefits of training with Mai was that she let him know how to increase his senses with chakra, and so his already good sense of smell and hearing were further amplified, although he needed to concentrate in order to distinguish sounds. It was very difficult and he wasn't sure if he would ever master it, but at least his base ability rose. Learning most of the water jutsu he had, while impressive, wasn't that important to him yet, since what he really needed to do was become like the second Hokage and be able to use moisture in the air. That's why he had been focusing on the hidden mist jutsu as much as the Rasengan, which he was able to use with the help of a shadow clone to use its final form. Now he had to be able to use it one-handed, and maybe he could start trying to add elemental chakra to it to complete what his father failed to do. As the visitors finally walked past a tree line making themselves visible, Naruto, squinting his eyes, undeniably felt a strong sense of deja vu. The tall white-clad man that had to be a Hyuga looked a bit like Neji team did, and the petite young girl by his side must have been his daughter or something. She had a pretty face, shoulder-length black hair, and the signature lavender eyes that all Hyuga were born with. 12-year-old academy student Hanabi Hyuga had admittedly been curious about this Naruto character ever since he had beaten her cousin Neji in a sanctioned spar without apparently even being hit once. Her cousin, while an asshole, had been hailed a genius even among Hyuga, as his gentle fist was expertly executed and his eyes we considered purer than many main branch members. In fact, only a precious few Hyuga had purer eyes than her and her father's, and although she was 3 years younger than Hinata after all of her hard work, she was deemed worthy to inherit the title of clan head. She did still love her older sister, but many times she felt herself pitying her for her weakness that only brought her misery. This Naruto had been her sister's inspiration for years, which is why she hadn't just given up completely yet, but before Hanabi had written him off as just a troublemaker. But now, with her sister's long-time infatuation with him and Neji's defeat, she had been pestering her father for an entire month in order to come and meet him. And the Hyuga way of meeting someone many times involved close combat. That was Hyuga life. Naruto Uzumaki, I presume? Hanabi asked as her and her father gracefully strolled to where Team 7 were gathering after their practice. Rubbing the back of his head with a disarming smile, Naruto replied. Yep, that's me, the Leaf, super awesome future Hokage and #1 prankster. Hope you're not mad about a prank or something. Or is this about that Neji guy? Hanabi, seemingly unaffected by his happy demeanor, told him. I am Hanabi Hyuga and this is my father Hiashi Hyuga, the leader of our clan. I am here because I wish to fight you and test myself against one who could defeat Neji without taking a single blow. Do you accept my challenge? What's the rules, Hanabi-chan? Naruto asked, a little put off about fighting such a cute and small-framed girl. What were the terms of your bout with my cousin Neji? Well, jutsu were allowed but no fatal blows, and I didn't use my sword, so how about this, you can use your gentle fist style with the chakra strikes, and even though I won't use jutsu, I'll use chakra as well. It's an important part of the taijutsu I've created, like it is for your Jukin after all. Everyone went wide-eyed at his words, especially Sakura and Kakashi, with the pink cat immediately asking. Hey, what's going in, Kakashi-sensei? Would she want to fight someone with terrible taijutsu like Naruto? Kakashi, trying to put things together, replied. Honestly, I wouldn't know, Sakura. But don't you think Naruto has been acting a bit strange lately? It just may be that he's been keeping his true strength a secret, which is actually an intelligent tactic for shinobi. Inwardly he was cursing his lack of a social life. Sure, he occasionally picked up a lady or two when a new issue of Ichiraku and he was inspired, but he never really talked with his fellow shinobi unless it was necessary. He had been distant like this ever since Rin and Obito passed and he joined the Anbu, which was why he even took a Genin squad in the first place. A few of his old friends had thought it would be good for him. But it would seem that he had neglected and underestimated his sensei's son, who had great potential if what the Hyuga era said was true. Now he wanted to observe and see what Naruto could really do. Sasuke, watching closely with his red eyes net at Kakashi's deduction, curious himself about the boy that could be a worthy rival in gaining more power. He didn't like the fact that the girl ignored him along with her father, but since her issue was with Naruto, he just would watch and learn what he could. Hanabi, restrict yourself to the basics on this occasion and try and finish as quickly as possible. Hiashi Hyuga instructed her, not out of disrespect for Naruto, but weariness because of Sasuke. The girl seemed to already understand as she nodded, and her and Naruto moved away from the spectators into position. As she took a stance with a determined look, Naruto declared just as confident. Naruto Uzumaki of the Uzumaki clan. Shadow Hyena Taijutsu. Let's do it, Dadabayo. Release. Seeing how he stood naturally and waited, Hanabi, taking a look at her father, smirked and replied. Hanabi Hyuga of the Hyuga clan. Gentle fist. Prepare yourself. Suddenly she shot forward nearly as fast as a Chunin, her Byakugan activating without her even uttering a sound. Naruto, flickering to the side of her, nearly caught her off guard, sending a side kick aimed at her midsection, but the nimble girl spun around the blow, with her arms outstretched in 2 twisting strikes. But Naruto disappeared again and was already behind her, shocking everyone with his impressive speed and direct attacks. He countered with several strong hucking claw swipes that were actually strikes that would turn into grabs, something he learned from sparring with Jiji and a few of his less powerful ape summons. The hyena shadow style was actually a combination of the snow leopard taijutsu, the ape style wrestling, and inspiration from his partner Mai, who used crushing bites to end fights in one blow. This was only enhanced with the Shunshin technique, which is why he worked so hard on learning to use it with no seals like many other ninja could. He just didn't tire from using it frequently, which gives him an edge in taijutsu. It was still difficult to reiterate himself after appearing to immediately attack, but at least now his speed was acceptable, mostly due to the resistance seal, which he had released before the match started. Hanabi, surprising him because it was still a bit weird fighting a Hyuga for him, lashed out with lightning-fast fingertips, hitting his forearms while spinning beside him, all without turning around until after she struck. Then she went for a double palm finisher to his ribs, but he disappeared again beside her, throwing a low kick, aiming for her thigh instead of her knee. As she responded to the kick he flickered again, this time catching her while she was a little off balance from trying to parry the low kick. Lashing out with a roundhouse to her upper arm, he struck true with and caused her to stagger a little, but she used precise chakra control to soften the forceful blow and wrapped her arm around his leg trapping it. Naruto, seeing he was caught by the smaller girl somehow, knew he was in trouble if he didn't get away fast, and jumping up just as her free hand struck out, he kicked off of her while taking a hit to the thigh, and he backflipped crisply but staggered from the pain in his leg. Damn, gentle fist was painful. Hanabi, using her chakra to absorb the kick, planted herself firmly and burst forward, nearly finished the blonde with 5 swift palms that came in a flurry aimed at his torso, but he flickered at the last second, a little delayed because of the sealed tenketsu point in his leg. Thankfully his chakra was rather powerful, or he may not have been able. Reappearing behind her and then flickering again, he appeared to the side of her and jumped into 2 spinning side kicks, using both his legs in the same attack trying to overwhelm her. But she was no novice into jutsu, and rolling to the side she rose, exploding into a series of palm strikes that came directly at Naruto's exposed side as he turned to parry the blows. He managed to stop the first 3, but the pain of the chakra entering his hands and wrist caused his defense to falter, and in a last-ditch effort, he tried to catch her with a jumping knee strike. She just twisted her body around the blow, and this time the double palm struck true, hitting him in his shoulder and sending him to the ground in a heap. He didn't give up so easily though, and rising while kicking out with his leg he tried and failed to use a flicker again to his astonishment. Hanabi, confidently awaiting him, just moved to the side when leapt into a hammer fist, his leg low roundhouse kicking at the same time. Lifting up her leg as the kick went under it, Hanabi caught Naruto with 2 more palm strikes that but his lower ribsage and upper back, causing him to grunt in pain and stagger some more. But no matter what, he wouldn't give up or fold. That's when Kakashi stepped in, and Hiashi had been about to do the same if he took any more attacks. Naruto, that's enough. You did well, but as of now this spar is over. Hanabi, Hyuga is the winner. Hanabi, beaming, stood triumphantly and told him. Your skill was decent, but I don't see how you defeated Neji. Is your specialty Taijutsu, Uzumaki-san? Just Naruto K. And nah, but Taijutsu is what I'm focusing on right now, Hanabi Hyme. Let's have a rematch sometime K, and I gotta say you're way stronger than you look. Believe it. But I'll be stronger than you before you know it. I have to be if I'm gonna be Hokage. Naruto declared, smiling brightly despite his loss. While Hanabi was a petite girl and that didn't make him happy he lost, the fact that she was the Hyuga head's daughter must have meant that she had been one of the better fighters in their family. She had to have had the best instructors, if not her father himself after all. Plus he felt he had done pretty well, although he hadn't used the chakra shield because he wasn't experienced enough with it yet. He honestly had been focusing more on the Rasengan and water manipulation, but now he saw the need for a better defense. He definitely wanted to face Hanabi again really soon though, since if he could beat a Hyuga with Taijutsu alone, then it'd mean he had certainly gotten much better. Hanabi don't know why, but the smile and determined look in his eyes as he talked to her caused her to feel something she had never experienced before. It was like her heart was stuttering and her stomach was loopy, but what could it have been? An effect of his Taijutsu? All she knew was that she wanted a proper rematch, since he had essentially been handicapped for the sake of improving his Taijutsu style. She was interested in seeing the full spectrum of his ability. I accept your challenge, Naruto-san, and I thank you for your kind words. We'll just have to see if you can back that claim up, but know that the Hyuga are the strongest. I wish you farewell, as I must resume my training. I'll see you later. But that Hanabi and her father left training ground 7, and after hobbling over to his favorite tree, Naruto knew the inevitable questioning would come as his team followed behind him. What was that Taijutsu, loser, and how's you get so fast? What is this Uzumaki clan? I thought you were an orphan. I am an orphan, and as far as my speed and Taijutsu goes, that's a secret. It's not like you'd tell me everything about your Uchiha Taijutsu, would you? Besides, the Uchiha and Uzumaki clans are old rivals, so it'd look bad if you learned my stuff anyway. Or have you lost your Uchiha pride? While it was actually a truth Naruto spoke about the old rivalry, he was actually using his words to manipulate the boy into not copying him. And it worked perfectly. Rivalry? What rivalry? I've never even heard of an Uzumaki clan, so that's because the Uzumaki clan were destroyed Sasuke and by 2 of the great nations nonetheless. They were too powerful for their own good, and Kumo and Iwa launched a surprise attack. Only a few survived, and the remnants of his clan were spread around the nations and hiding. Remember how I said Naruto has much more chakra than even me? Well, it's an Uzumaki thing. Kakashi explained, already knowing what was going to happen. Naruto seemed to invite it however, and the boy's using pride was a good way to keep his techniques his. Fight me, Naruto Uzumaki. Let's see which clan is superior. Sasuke challenged with a serious look in his red eyes. Sure thing, Sasuke Uchiha, but let me rest first, that gentle fist hurts like hell. Tomorrow. HN. As Naruto sat breathing air in and out using the abdominal breathing method to meditate, he noticed that none of his team had moved even after Sasuke had challenged him and he accepted. His body stung on the damned inside as if slim kunai had been impaled within, and as he concentrated hoping to will the sensation to fade, it was Sakura who spoke. So had all of this been an act the entire time? Asking me on dates, acting goofy and weak when you're really strong. Playing the fool. Chuckling as he decided he wanted to stand, Naruto rose saying. Maybe, but what does it matter, we're ninja and we rely on stealth and deception, just like Kakashi told me in Wave. All you really need to know about me is that I'll always protect you Sakura and even you Sasuke. And I'll be the greatest Hokage that ever lived. Believe it. Sakura blushed because of the look in his eyes as he spoke, it was like he was speaking directly to her spirit self. His eyes pierced into her very soul as before he gave her a confident smirk and for the first time ever she doubted that Sasuke could win. It was because of this inconceivable thought that her brain momentarily shut down and she was speechless, not even hearing what Naruto said next. What did you say? She asked, more than a little confused. Does you want to train later? I mean not like a date, but just so we can get stronger and be a better team. Never know when another Zabuza may pop up and try to slice our heads off Dadabayo. Sakura could only dumbly nod at his troubling words as her lack of skill slammed into her once more, just like it had on the bridge. She wasn't able to do anything at all, but maybe Naruto could help. He was offering to after all, and from what she saw he was actually pretty strong. She knew things probably would have been different if he had used clones like she saw before. But then she remembered. Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, will you train with me? She asked hopefully with a pleading look like she was trying to prove herself. Just let the dope train you so you won't be dead weight. I have better things to do, but if you want to be useful then use that chakra control of yours and study Genjutsu. Then at least you won't hold us back. He coolly replied with a blank look. It was like he was looking right through her, but Sakura could only promise she'd get better and hope he'd notice her then. He had just talked to her the most he ever had, and he seemed to almost be expectantly ordering her. She'd be damned if she let him down. She's not dead weight team, but you're right, she does have two-notch chakra control. Hey, I have a few books on Genjutsu I can lend you Sakura, and now that I think about it, I have a few swords you can have. I bet you could combine Ken and Genjutsu and be pretty badass. Then Team 7 will be unstoppable. Naruto exclaimed, getting all kinds of good ideas. He's right, with a sword you won't have to worry about strength so much, just technique. And with Genjutsu you can set the pace or support us, with a blade to protect you. I'm close combat. Blushing and nodding at both her teammates' encouraging words, the Pincat inwardly vowed to get stronger, if only so she could close the gap between them. Kakashi, who was eyeing her closely, seemed to pick up on her newfound determination and added, eye smiling. Well, it would seem you three finally understand the meaning of teamwork. I'll help you with a Genjutsu scroll Sakura, and while I can't show you any Genjutsu I'll be sure I have a water clone for you to spar with daily. Maybe with your advanced chakra control, you can learn elemental manipulation to enhance your Genjutsu. In fact, I'm sure you can. Sakura, beaming at Kakashi support, failed to notice Naruto's grimace as silence fell once more. Sasuke knelt as usual and began walking away with his hands in his pockets, but not before saying. Rest well Uzumaki, because tomorrow the Uchiha will prove victorious. We'll see Sasuke, just don't underestimate again, you hear, or you'll be really sorry you did. If the Uchiha heard, he gave no indication as he walked into the trees, and Naruto had already begun considering what he would reveal during their match. He decided to use techniques that couldn't be copied, like his bamboo style he had been working on. While it mostly relied in trap making, he still had a few direct combat applications and even defensive techniques. It was actually the bamboo he may have been working on most of all, since it was his and his alone in his mind. He had thought I'd the good idea, and so every techniques he made was his creation, which he was very proud about. He would never just love in his father's shadow, especially when he was shadow. The other thing besides Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu, and Taijutsu he had been working on was of course Fuinjutsu, but that was going so much slower than everything else. While he was learning and understanding the art, his lack of decent handwriting proved to be his undoing, and so instead of just meditating like Haku suggested, he practiced calligraphy. It was very frustrating to be able to actually understand sealing naturally somehow, but be unable to draw any seals. Not even near the required perfection at that. And he had so many ideas too. So Naruto, how long have you known about your clan? And why hide your skill from us? I mean, I understand hiding it from others, but we're your team. You should trust us more. Kakashi stated, wondering what the blonde's response would be. What he didn't expect was the boy's look of anger as he replied. The better question is why you never bothered to help me, especially considering who your sensei was. Don't get me wrong, I can't say I really care so much now, I've got other people I care about and a great teacher. But you could have left a scroll or something, but I guess you were too busy mourning, right sensei? Kakashi staggered back as if stuck forcefully as shame overwhelmed him not for the first time, and he could see his sensei's calculating eyes through Naruto's fierce serious expression. He never expected Naruto to know of his father, and who was this teacher the boy had. He knew he had failed badly, but what if Naruto's teacher was someone with malicious intent? He couldn't forgive himself if Naruto left the village due to his neglect, and as Sakura looked back and forth between the two of them worried he answered. When sensei died I ran and buried myself in work trying to forget about everything. I was there the night they died, and I couldn't protect them from that man, that masked man took both of them away from us, and after that I just couldn't ever bring myself around to I'm sorry Naruto. And even still after this team was made, what about then? What about the times when you could have just handed me a scroll? I'm not gonna walk around crying like a bitch about it, but never act like you're my family. You left me alone like the others, and the only thing you've done in all these years is help me last month. That's the only reason I don't hate you Kakashi. Kakashi's eye actually began watering a little bit before he flickered away to the memorial stone, and Naruto for a brief microsecond felt a twinge of guilt before his expression hardened again. When the old man let Naruto know what happened the night he was born and how his wife had been killed while his mom was delivering him, he had inevitably learned about Kakashi and his relationship to his father the fourth. The old man actually had an excuse and was rectifying his mistakes at least. But Kakashi. He just played it cool like everything was fine and tried to act like he was the pinnacle of what teamwork was in essence. If he hadn't said that abandoned comrades worse than trash thing Naruto may have been more sympathetic, but when he learned that a few weeks back he had come to somewhat loathe Kakashi. Fucking hypocrite. Still, things had been going so well that he had remained silent, constantly conditioning himself while Sasuke received his private tutelage. Naruto didn't want to learn from Kakashi anymore, in fact he didn't even need to. Even when the Hokage stopped training him in a week, he had everything he needed to be great already. Of course it wasn't safe for the old man to be splitting his chakra so many times using shadow clones when he had to protect the village, Naruto knew that. He wanted to make his own way anyways, although the old man did say he'd introduce him to a kenjutsu expert that could help him part-time once a week. He was looking forward to that. Naruto, what was all that about with Kakashi-sensei, he knew your family or something? Sakura asked, curious and confused, feeling very out of place. Don't worry about it Sakura-chan, let's get out of here so I can give you those books and a sword. We'll be the best in the village, and you better believe it. Glad to see his usual fiery attitude, Sakura blushed a bit and nodded her head, letting him take the lead before she noticed something lying on the ground. Hey Naruto, I didn't know you used war fans. She said, unfolding the ornate weapons of steel curving blades. It was dark blue in color, just like, that's not mine, I think it might be the team's. Might as well leave it though, he'll find it tomorrow if he doesn't come back for it. Naruto suggested, wanting to keep moving. If Sasuke didn't care then he didn't either. No, let's take it to him, I know where he lives. She retorted, looking excitedly at Naruto, who just shrugged, saying, alright, but let's make it fast. I have to get back to training my body and I have to water my plants after that. Then maybe I can finish in time to go out tonight. Sakura beaming asked him as they walked together with him putting his hood up. I didn't know you had plants. I never thought you the type, but I guess I never really got to know you, did I? I just want to say thanks for helping me Naruto, Sasuke even noticed me today. Pulling out a storage scroll, Naruto said. Nah, no thanks necessary Sakura-chan. Just making sure you can protect yourself I guess, and what are teammates for, right? There's a lot you don't know about me, and I get the feeling there's more to you than liking Sasuke. So how about a fresh start? Taking his outstretched hand shaking to his proposal, Sakura beamed at her new friend who she was admittedly curious about. Naruto had stopped asking her on dates a while ago, and weirdly in the pit of her stomach, she had started feeling empty and unwanted after that. Especially every time Sasuke rejected or ignored her advances. Then there was his new appearance, which she had to admit made him very attractive and even cool looking. Not as attractive or cool as Sasuke, but still. Naruto, is that sake? Sakura exclaimed as the blonde unsealed a bottle that looked a lot like alcohol. She couldn't believe it. What was next? Yeah, you want some? He asked nonchalantly after taking a large gulp. Honey sake was the best. No you baka, you can't drink, give it here now. She yelled, trying and failing to snatch it, while Naruto weaved around, he laughing and taunting her. Ha her, I didn't let you kill my buzz, no thanks Hyme. He laughed before guzzling more down and dodging an angry storm of swings. Naruto had begun drinking quite a bit ever since Kurenai introduced him to honey rice wine, and he even had a full cabinet completely stocked with reserves. It helped him relax after training, and it also made Ichiraku much better to read. Not to mention when he snuck some into the new Princess Gale movie. Kami, she was so hot. Her give anything just to have 5 minutes alone with her, and there was even a teaser about an Ichiraku movie being produced sometime in the future. He was definitely their opening night. After about an hour's walk, Naruto and Sakura finally made it to the Uchiha district, which happened to be very close to Naruto's 3 houses. The blonde, being more than tipsy, asked Sakura to point out his house, and the pink eye eventually did as they rounded another corner. Smirking at her foolishness, Naruto flickered away, already opening his front door, which happened to be unlocked, looking forward to sneaking up on the bastard and one-upping him for fun. His simple prank would never come to be, however, but Naruto did get something up. As he appeared almost silently in the same area that Sasuke was getting undressed in, his jaw crashed into the hardwood flooring harder than guys' leg weights would have. And for a good reason. As the Uchiha turned and observed her white-clad teammate and rival, all she could do was stare emotionless for a moment that seemed to last for eternity, as his face turned into something redder than a tomato, which was her favorite food. Then the gravity of the situation hit her. Naruto had found out. Naruto had found out. As Naruto just gaped like a fish out of water at the slim yet slightly curved form of Sasuke, the first thing that came to mind was just how gorgeous she was. While her breasts weren't very large, they seemed to fit her lithe body perfectly, and her red eyes and black hair that was in a spiky ponytail reminded him of Kurenai and that Anko lady combined. Naruto always wondered why Sasuke smelled kind of like the other girls in the academy, but it never occurred to him that this was why. It would seem Naruto wasn't the only one who had hidden secrets, and he was instantly reminded of Haku by this entire situation. And then she was in front of him, in his face no less. Naruto, what the fuck are you doing here? Don't tell any fucking body you hear. He didn't exactly know why he did it, but maybe it was because he thought back to the time he kissed Sasuke, although that was an accident. Or maybe the honey's sake he had just drank. It just suddenly hit him that he had actually kissed this girl, and when she started yelling and got all close, he just moved without thinking about it. And now their lips were locked, Naruto watching her closely to see what she would do. And then her entire body relaxed, and she leaned forward, returning at full force all of a sudden. Wrapping his arms around her and sticking his tongue in her mouth, Naruto had a feeling it was Icha time. Icha time. Suddenly getting aggressive, Naruto attacked her neck, loving her moans as she grabbed his hair tightly, and their tongues collided. Then his diamond hard member pressed into her as he subconsciously humped her a little, and everything seemed to just go with the flow as her boxers slid off while he groped her through the blue Uchiha shirt she was wearing. His pants somehow already down, he fell on top of her on the couch that was nearby, still making out and lining his length up, getting ready to enter. And just like that, the two rivals had become one, just as Sakura walked in the room. The Pinkette's mind couldn't handle what was witnessed, and so she just slumped to the ground rather enough unceremoniously, unconscious. Neither of them seemed to notice, or maybe they just didn't care, but after almost 10 minutes of steamy sex, Naruto felt like exploding. When he had first entered, it was so tight and moist, he nearly lost himself immediately. But hearing the pained moan, he remembered to let her adjust, and after she started grinding into him a little, he began thrusting deeply into her. He loved the feeling of their skin rubbing together and the body heat that was produced, their sweat sickening their bodies as he increased his pace. He didn't stop making out with her even once, for the first time appreciating the red eyes of the Sharingan whenever their lustful gaze met. Then he cupped her small breast in his hand, somehow knowing that if he used the first stage of the Rasengan to massage the orb, she would melt from his touch. Neither of them were disappointed as she screamed in pleasure with her nails digging into his back as she came for the third time. That was when it happened. Naruto felt the intensifying warmth in his lower region that seemed grow as he finally broke the kiss, grabbing her head and plowing into her as he began to feel lightheaded.